And we're live. Ivor, welcome back, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Sean.
The last day, Ivor, we didn't really get to finish. We didn't get fucking halfway through, I don't think, the original story.
Yeah.
How many days were you in Peru for the ceremony, say?
How far had we got?
No, in general, like from start to finish.
From start to finish, it was 11 days out in the jungle with Percy.
Okay, fuck, so we only got to, was it day 3?
Well, I think we got to ceremony 3, and as we said in the first podcast, it was 1 day of drinking, 1 day not drinking, so that would have been, I suppose, day 6 really.
Day 6 of the 11?
Of the 11, yeah, day 6 out of the 10 or 11, I think it's 10 or 11 days.
Okay, now I've thankfully picked up a few extra listeners, say, since the last time that we spoke. So
Yeah.
anybody that's listening to this, to Ivor, say, for the first time, I can't recommend highly enough you stop listening to this, go back to episode 3, I think it was, and hear Ivor's story in detail from the start. But to jog the memories of the people who did listen, and to give people who are too lazy to go back and listen to the first one a heads up, you encouraged a couple of your mates, was it 2 or 3 of the guys?
There was 3 of my mates that came with me, yeah.
So you dragged 3 lads somehow, God knows how you managed it, but you dragged 3 lads to Peru, to the Amazon jungle, to partake in an ayahuasca ceremony.
Yeah, well, 5 ayahuasca ceremonies.
Okay, that's actually, I've never heard of it phrased like that. So I would have put that down as a 5-day ayahuasca ceremony. But the way you kind of phrased it there was that it was 5 separate ayahuasca ceremonies. Is that strictly true, or?
Well, to be honest, you know, the whole thing, the whole 11 days is one big ceremony, and within that one big ceremony, there's 5 separate occasions where you drink ayahuasca, and each one is a ceremony in itself. But you know, when I say that, you know, it's an 11-day long ceremony, it's, you know, it's not just about drinking the ayahuasca. It's the flower baths. It's the integration of all of your experiences and stuff like that out there. So it is a ceremony that's taking place over 11 days. It's a complete, you know, a cleansing of your body with the foods you're eating, and, you know, as I said, like when Percy does the baths and he uses the different mapacho smoke to clean your energies and all of that stuff, that's all happening within it's a big ceremony is how I would describe it, and it's an 11-day one, but there's 5 different nights where you drink ayahuasca within 11 days. You know, there's even a time where Percy has this kind of hut built, and you go in there and he's made like these steam baths. So you've got like this massive bucket of water, and it's got kind of like it's got all these different flowers and healing herbs and all of that in, and I guess it's kind of like a steam room, as it were, like, you know. So you go in, and the brew, I suppose it's a bucket with all these kind of things, and it is put in there with you, and you're kind of inhaling the vapour from all of this, like, you know. And as I say, each little thing is kind of part of an overall ceremony, I believe, anyway, like, you know.
Yeah, and again, for the people who had listened to our first episode, towards the end of it, we had said that the next time that we sat down would be post our participation in not an ayahuasca ceremony, but a psilocybin mushroom ceremony.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found, that was just an evening, say, as opposed to like an 11-day thing.
Yeah.
But what I found was, the second the date was set, you know, 2 months previous, I found my ceremony kind of started from that date.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd mentioned that to you, and you kind of couldn't have agreed more.
Yeah.
But can you expand on that for people, can you elaborate on what that is and how that kind of works? It almost tricks you into just thinking about it obsessively, and I don't know, how would you describe it even?
You know, I think it's once you begin to put that kind of plan into process and stuff like that, like, you know, I speak of these plants having a spirit and that, like, you know, and I believe that this, you know, the spirit of the plant can call you out to the Amazon jungle, you know. So in its own way, it's already working on you. It's, you know, it's working on I guess you become a little bit more introspective about your life, don't you? Like, you know, as soon as you put that plan into place, you begin. It's as if maybe blockages start to open up a little, and you begin to look at patterns that are happening in your lives, and, you know, different things like that. And, you know, I believe that that's kind of in the lead up nearly to the ceremony, for the couple of weeks or whatever beforehand, when you've set the date, And I think you begin to think about your intention, don't you? You begin to think of, right, well, why am I doing this, and what am I looking for out of it, like, and I think as in the weeks building up to that, I think you begin to get them answers that seem to come. They seem to become a lot clearer to you as you're going along, like, and it's all, to me, it's a build up to the ceremony and to being out there and working with the plant medicines and stuff like that, and it's, maybe it's as, I've heard you speak about the placebo effect and stuff, like maybe what you're doing by setting your intentions and setting a date is maybe you're unlocking little parts of your brain, and giving yourself a chance to be able to look at them things with a bit more clearer vision, I guess, like, Maybe that's what it is. I couldn't give you a definitive answer or the exact answer, but that's what I would believe it is. Like,
No, it's great. And what you said there about the different perspective and even the placebo effect makes perfect sense to me, because even since I've set up the Facebook page and I've uploaded a couple of videos, I've since almost started viewing the world slightly different. So I look at something and I go, oh, I could do this for a video for the podcast, and it just kind of. It changes your perception. And This is a recurring theme. It's happened on nearly every second podcast. We get back to this idea that you create your own reality, essentially.
Yeah.
But in relation to setting the date, the thing that I found was, once the date was set, it was like, okay, right, fuck, we're going over to Holland and we're going to do this. And I've had bad mushroom trips in Amsterdam before, and I was kind of. I suppose for anyone who's taken mushrooms or any kind of psychedelic, there is I suppose a chance that they can, I suppose, go bad is the wrong way to view them, because you can learn from, a quote unquote bad trip. Say, you had your bad experiences.
Yeah,
you
for
spoke
sure.
about them the last day.
Yeah.
But I suppose
and probably learned as much from the bad experiences as I did from the good experiences as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I think what focused me from having set the date was, okay, we're going over on this date, so it'll be this evening that we do it. I kind of started examining my own consciousness, for want of a better word, and thinking about what's not right in my life.
Yeah.
Because that's typically what will haunt you during, let's say, a bad trip.
Yeah.
So I was like, I haven't really fucking dealt with this. Is that what's going to come up and bite me in the ass?
Yeah.
So by the time the date had rolled around, I'd almost made my peace with a couple of different things.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned the psychedelics as medicines, and as how they maybe not cure you, but certainly aid in your betterment, say, psychologically or physically or otherwise, or healing, you say. And I felt that I was almost healed in a certain couple of areas a fortnight before I ate the fucking things. Do you know what I mean?
That's a very common story. Like, so many people speak of that. Like, that's, within the psychedelic community, that's often spoke about. You certainly aren't, the first person to say that. Like, it's generally talked about an awful lot. Like, that as soon as you put your intentions in there, that it already starts the process from the minute you've made your intention to go out there. It starts the process nearly straight away.
Yeah. No, I thought that was fascinating, that the healing for, and I know that might sound as a contrived term to many people.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better one.
That's it.
I'm a relatively articulate person, and healing is as good a word as I can think of.
Yeah, that's it.
Started months beforehand, and really when the date was set, because we talked about it on the podcast, we were going to do it, and nothing really changed.
Yeah.
But the day you said, does this date suit you? And I wrote back, yes, it does.
Yeah.
And then it was like, flights are booked. It was like, fuck.
Yeah. It's on.
It's on, yeah.
Yeah.
But so the last day we got to day 3, so can you just quickly run through what happened, let's say, in the first 3 days of the ceremony, say? So, sorry, you were over the 11-day period that you were there. You're there for a couple of days before you do any ceremony. Am I right in saying that?
We'd been in Machu Picchu.
Yes.
So we climbed kind of Machu Picchu over 4 nights. We camped out on Machu Picchu, and that was an amazing experience. Absolutely, wonderful, beautiful experience, and an amazing way to kind of, I suppose, set us up for heading into the jungle. So we'd spent the 4 days on Machu Picchu, and maybe a day or two either side in Cusco, and then we'd headed up to Iquitos, and then spent a night in Iquitos, and then headed for the jungle then, on a big bus into the middle of the jungle. Yeah, so we got the kind of Percy Centre or whatever, And
sorry, Percy being the
Percy
shaman.
being the, well, shaman would be the Western word for it. Like, like they would call themselves curanderos.
Okay.
That would be the, I suppose their native speak for it. Like, the shaman is the name that we've probably given them. Like, and they say that any shaman, if you meet somebody who tells you they're a shaman, run a mile.
Yeah. Because
they're probably full of shit. Like, so Percy would never call himself a shaman, or he probably wouldn't even call himself a curandero, to be honest with you. Like, he would just say he works with the medicine. He's just somebody who works with the medicine. Like, so like we in the West, we kind of have to put a name on these things, and that's the word we've given it, as shaman. Like, it wouldn't be native to Peru or that for them to be called shamans. Ayahuasca just isn't drank in Peru. It's drank in Peru. It's drank in Brazil, Bolivia. There's all within South America. There's different places to go and drink ayahuasca.
It is exclusive to South America, though, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah, it seems to be, because I think the vine and the leaf are both native to South America.
Okay.
And as I kind of said in the other podcasts, when you go to Africa, like the Bwiti tribes, like they would use ibogaine, so that would be their plant medicine. The Mexicans would have used psilocybin mushrooms. They call them tianoctal is the name that they've given to their sacrament, and that means flesh of the gods, and that's magic mushrooms. Like what our Druids and our pagans would have used in Ireland would have been the liberty caps, which are a psilocybin mushroom as well. And there's some evidence that suggests that, when St. Patrick brought Catholicism over to Ireland, you often hear it said like that St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. Well, the snakes are a symbol going back thousands of years for healing, aren't they? Like, it's if you go to a chemist, you'll see the pole and you'll see the two snakes intertwined around it, and that's a sign for medicine, like, but what St. Patrick really done was he drove the medicine men out of Ireland, and that's what that is. Like when they say St. Patrick drove the snakes out, it's a metaphor for he drove the pagans, and he drove the people who use these different plant medicines and stuff like that out of Ireland, and that was what to drive the snakes out was.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. We've spoken about that kind of in between podcasts.
Yeah. Sorry, again, I do want to say that these are things I've just heard. I can't offer you 100% proof that that's the case, like, but I've heard it talked about in many different circles that that's what that is, like,
Yeah, well, look, it makes a certain amount of sense, and I think Christianity is to blame. I think not just in Ireland but worldwide for kicking the so-called snakes out of all the countries. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that the Incas or the Aztecs, it wasn't Christianity they were all into before the conquistadors came over.
Not.
That kind of way, they all obviously had their own traditions.
Yeah, and I've often been asked, like, people have often said to me, well, why are we just hearing about these things now, but like, what you have to kind of look at is back in history as, when Catholicism, when the Spanish and all that, when they went to places like South America and all of that, they went into these temples and stuff where these healers and these curanderos would have been or whatever, and they literally burnt them at the stake. They said that they were talking to the devil, and that kind of would have drove them deep into the jungles, and that's why we find these medicines in the jungles, because the Spanish at the time and all of that, like they couldn't go in there because they weren't used to the terrain of the Amazon jungle and things like that. So what they done was that they went over there, like that religion, when it went there, it burned people at the stake, like it raped and pillaged cities and all that, all in the name of God. And it went to these people, and they said, we look here in this book, like, let me show you God in here. And then people were kind of like, well, we use our plants and we speak to God, like, what do we need to learn from a book or whatever? So they began to kind of kill out all them tribes. So the tribes then took their medicines and all their different ways of healings and all their understandings of the plants and of the way nature works. That got driven into the jungles, like, and we're only now seeing that come back out, like,
Yeah, and I suppose in South America they had jungles to hide in, and that's why you wonder how any Druid survived in Ireland. And I know I've looked into it in very minor detail. And there are still Druids in Ireland, and there's like a Druid association.
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
bits and pieces of kind of things here and there, but
yeah.
there doesn't seem to be the kind of rich traditions
No,
that have
absolutely not.
hidden, let's say, deep in the jungle. And maybe
Yeah.
if we had enormous jungles, we'd have more of our own ancestry
For
kind
sure.
of saved.
Yeah, we've certainly lost our culture, you know, when it comes to the Druids and the paganism, and because that was rife within Ireland, like, you know, like they were kind of fertility cults. That's what they were, like, you know, and we've lost their knowledge. And even when we talk about, you know, like, you know, the Celtic understanding of nature and all that, we're really just bits and pieces trying to put that together. Like, there's no big picture really, like, you know, there's nothing that we can say is, you know, that this was their full beliefs and all of that. Like, we've little bits here and we've little bits there of that, like, you know, but nothing we can say this is exactly what they practiced and this is how they went about it, like, you know.
No, absolutely, especially here in Ireland. Like, if you speak to anybody that would consider themselves an expert in something like Newgrange, the first thing that they'll tell you is essentially they haven't a fucking, not that they haven't a fucking clue, but that, as you said, it's bits and pieces, and this is kind of half sort of maybe what we kind of think happened, but because I suppose they didn't leave as much written word as maybe other cultures did, or if they did, it was all burned or whatever it was. So it's a shame to have lost it, but I think there is a massive resurgence, and I think there's a certain irony there, because there's an irony in relation to how how Christianity banished all these other, you know, religions. The irony there is they were both speaking about essentially the same thing in many respects, just different versions of the same thing. They were both trying to explain the same phenomenon.
And that I you know, it will be my belief that that's what all religions are, like, you know, all of the religions and all of the philosophies and all of that is it's all just our attempt to try and understand God. You know, that's what it is, like. It's the best explanation we can give to try and understand the world and our surroundings and what our ideas of God are, like, you know, and that's what that is, like, you know, that's what a lot of them are.
And for fear of kind of losing people that haven't maybe listened to the first episode, when you say God, you would see the word God, say, as synonymous with consciousness.
Consciousness, exactly, yeah. Like, the word God is such a loaded word now, isn't it? Like, you know,
very
like
much so.
when you say the word God to people, you know, they roll their eyes at you, like, you know.
And that's why I felt compelled to kind of get that across.
No, of course,
I know if the me 2 years ago had tuned into this, talk of ayahuasca and talk about healing and different things, and I'll give that a go, and then God gets mentioned, and it's just, you know, I've already skipped on to the next one, like, you know? But I think people, and again, look, it pains me to fucking mention his name so often, but Jordan Peterson has kind of reinvigorated my interest in religion generally, and he would view Christianity as having had the best version of all the different religions, say, but I suppose he's opened my eyes to what the original meaning of the text was, and not the heavily bastardized version that's kind of put out now, that, you know, gays are evil and that you should, you know, have no money yourself, you should give all your money to us, kind of thing, you know.
Of course, but you see that, you know, when you look at Christianity and all of that kind of thing, like, there's an awful lot of evidence now that seems to be coming out. When you take the Bible, and you take the Bible as what it is, like, it's supposed to be kind of a biography of Jesus Christ's life, like, you know, but within that book, like, from the age of, I think it's 14 to 30, there's nothing about Jesus' life, and they call that the lost years. Now, there seems to be a growing body of evidence to suggest that within them years that Jesus Christ had gone, what he had done was he had gone to India, and what he was doing was he was over there and he was studying with the holy men and the sages, and, you know, and he became a yogi when he was there. He then, at the age of 30, returned, you know, back to where he was from, and began to preach his message and stuff like that, you know. But the message that Jesus Christ was preaching is a very different message than you're hearing in the Bible, like, you know, the big message that Jesus Christ preached about, and one of his main teachings is that the kingdom of heaven is found within the kingdom of heaven is within you. And he, you know, if you're to look at this other kind of view on Jesus Christ's life, they say that he he spoke about meditation. Meditation. If you want to find God, you find God within yourself. You are the temple. There's no need for churches, no need for temples, no need for priests, no need for gurus. If you want to find God, you find God through meditation. You go within yourself, and you quieten your mind. You quieten your mind to complete stillness. And Gandhi has a lovely saying on meditation. Gandhi says that the patience needed to become a good practitioner of meditation is the same patience it would take a man to empty the ocean with a teacup.
A lot of work.
Oh, unbelievable amount of work. Like, it's not, meditation is not something you do once a week, like, and you think you meditate. Like, it's a daily practice, like, and maybe twice a day should be your meditation practice, like, you know. But the thing that, you know, Jesus Christ, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, all these people all spoke about was the key to finding God was through meditation, going within yourself and quieting the mind. In the stillness of the mind is where you'll find God.
It doesn't fill the coffers of a large organisation.
And that's exactly it. How can any business who wants you to come and keep buying your product off you, you know, how could they keep getting your money? They want you to keep coming to that church, and they want you to keep donating your money. It's become a business now, is what it's become. But it couldn't be a business if what they were telling you was, you know, as the yogi Jesus would have said, you know, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That means you find that yourself. Like, you know, within that other view of Jesus, you know, he spoke that, you know, he didn't believe in prayer in public and all of these kind of things, and these seem to be kind of lost in the translation. But again, as we said, how would the Catholic Church keep getting your money and they say to you, come to us, buy our product and we'll show you God. But what Jesus' real teachings and what Jesus really preached was to find God within yourself.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's weird because when you kind of step back and look at the idea of going to Mass objectively, like, if you, like, presumably, even from, let's say, the Catholic Church's point of view, the reason they want you to keep coming to Mass is so that they can kind of teach you about the Gospels and about the story of our Lord and all the rest of it. But when you think about it, if you've been going there every week for 30 years, you'd surely consider yourself a bit of an expert if it was being taught in a way that you learn it. But it's not. Do you know the kind of way? It's in convoluted language that nobody understands.
Yeah, of course.
Like, when was the last time you were at a Mass, say, now, I'm not a Mass goer, but I do attend kind of christenings and weddings and funerals, so I still do kind of dip my toe into Catholicism by default, if nothing else. But the stories are all, like, you could read them in the book, and that's the thing that they read from the fucking book. They don't explain it in a way that you can understand. There's literally no attempt made to get you to understand what it is that they're saying, other than you just kind of listening to them,
listening and taking
themselves.
it in.
But
that's, you know, that's again where the shamanic worldview differs. Like, you know, when you look at them with the religions, you know, they kind of say, you know, come to us and we'll teach you about God. But the shamanic view is, you know, it's a show not tell. You know, you come and you take the plant medicine, or you come, you know, and you experience God. There's no one telling you, you know, this is what God is or that is what God is. You come and you experience God for yourself through these plant medicines. And that's what the native Indians said. They said, you know, you go to a Christian church and they tell you about God. You come to my ceremony and I show you God and let you have your own experience with God.
Yeah, and put you on your own path. Say.
Exactly. And, you know, maybe this is a good time to say that, you know, I don't want people, you know, to listen to either of these podcasts and think that all I'm talking about is psychedelics and plant medicines. Like, you know, I believe that, you know, for want of a better word, like your spiritual journey, I believe that, you know, the plant medicines and the psychedelics should be the very smallest part of your spiritual practice. Like, I believe, you know, every day I meditate, I fast, I do 16-hour fasts every day. You know, they are my daily practices. Like, the psychedelics and the plant medicines are a very, very small part of my again, for want of a better word, spiritual practice. You know, so I don't want people to, you know, to think that I'm coming on here and saying it's only psychedelics. I believe, you know, some people say, you know, that the psychedelic, you'll find enlightenment in the psychedelic. Well, I believe what the psychedelic is it's a very, very short window to show you what enlightenment is. It doesn't give you enlightenment. It shows you what enlightenment is. And it then encourages you to dedicate the rest of your life to bringing enlightenment into your life every day. The real definition of enlightenment is to have that experience on a daily basis. Like, I would believe people like Jesus and people like, you know, Buddha and Krishna, from all them different Eastern philosophies and that, what they would have found was enlightenment. But that's because it's happening on a daily basis. The psychedelic is not giving you enlightenment on a daily basis. It's giving you a very short window to have a look at where you need to be, and that's where you could be if you come with the right practices. And that's where I believe, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism, I'm beginning to question if what they are is a map of consciousness, and it's a map to show you to get to where them people were, because them three people that I've spoken about, like, you know, they constantly preach that everybody can get here. This is not, Jesus Christ never preached to be any more the Son of God than you are or I are. Like, you know, he spoke that everybody is the Son of God, and that everybody can get there through a certain path and a certain way of living. Like, you know, when you read the Hindu, the Bhagavad Gita, that to me it's a map. It's a map to show you how to get to the states that the psychedelics will show you, but how to get there without using the psychedelics. And I believe that the psychedelics are they're healers. They're healers and they're teachers. So I believe that, you know, everything. I believe that this is a game, and I believe that it's all levels. So everything is a level. So if the shamanic kind of part with it is one level, I believe then that it's healing people, it's healing your soul, and it's preparing your soul to get you ready to then go and use the maps that Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and Confucianism, all of these different philosophies are showing you how to return home, return to God.
And that's what the top of the ladder. So
exactly. So levels. That's the next level. So what, you know, if you know, I've began to wonder lately if the last level in this game, in this game of life, is the last level the Eastern philosophies, like, you know. And again, as I said, it's Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's that, like, you know. But is the shamanic part the level before? And as you use the plant medicines, they're healing your soul, but while they're healing your soul, they're showing you, look over here, this is where you need to go. This is the next direction. This is the next level in the game. And this is, I believe now, and what I'm beginning to see from the different, you know, books that I'm reading, and, you know, the different podcasts that I'm listening to, you know, what they are is maps, and they're maps to show you how to return to God.
When you say healing the soul, that would imply that the soul is in some way, you know, broken or damaged in some sense. Is that what you mean? Or
yeah, I guess. Well, you know, we all carry around baggage with us, don't we? Like, you know, things that have, you know, scarred you in this life, or things that have scarred you in, you know, what I would believe previous lives. I said on the last podcast, you know, I believe in reincarnation, you know, but within reincarnation, I believe in karma. I believe that we're all here kind of working out our karma, and that's what we're doing. What you put out into the universe comes back at you, and that's not a punishment. What that is if you can do something to somebody to hurt them in a certain way, it's because you haven't learned that lesson yourself. So that's why you're willing to do that to somebody else. What that means is that at a later stage in your life, or a later stage in one of your next lives, that same situation or that same lesson will have to come to you in order for your soul to grow and to evolve. So I'm after losing my train of
No,
thought.
you're grand, you're
sorry,
grand.
yeah. So I believe that this is all a lesson. I believe your soul is here learning lessons to grow and to evolve. I believe everything is evolution. I believe everything is a part of evolution, and I believe your soul is evolving. And as it evolves from one teacher to the next, like, and the indigenous tribes would call these medicines plant teachers. And I believe that, these plants are teaching us. They're teaching us and they're showing us little windows into the bigger reality that's out there, like, and it's then sending you on your path to finding your way home. And as I said, like, we all do carry around baggage and stuff like that with us. And, the shamanic viewpoint would be that a lot of the things that are happening to you in this lifetime might not be a result of what's happening in this lifetime, but might be baggage from a previous lifetime. You may have been, you may have been abused in a previous lifetime. You may have been murdered in a previous lifetime. And that's why I say your soul brings that lesson with it. The soul enters this body to experience life, but it still carries its karma, and it still carries cause and effect, like, and that's what karma is like, So it carries that from incarnation to incarnation, and you need to, get rid of them kind of things,
Yeah.
And I believe that's what the psychedelic, I think when I say they're healers, I believe that they're healing your soul from them things that we've carried maybe through different incarnations that we haven't been able to maybe get rid of or cleanse ourselves from.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I'm conscious of people who tune into this for the first time, and like the mention of God there earlier on, they're going to hear, reincarnation and past lives, and what the fuck is this lad talking about? But for the benefit of the people who haven't tuned in for the first one, your views are all fairly science based. Like, I mean, you're a scientifically minded guy for the most part. Like,
yeah, I get, I fully appreciate science, but I believe science and spirituality have to work together. And as I said before, I'm not mad on the word spirituality. It's the only word I can really use to convey God, what I'm talking. Exactly, loaded, it's loaded, isn't it? Like, but I believe that they both have to work hand in hand together. But I believe from my experience in the jungle, on night 3, that was kind of where we got to in the first podcast. We got to kind of night 3 where I was kind of at the end. They bring you in and they do a personal healing on you. So I was kind of brought in, and I was brought down onto my mattress, and I'm kind of, I was kneeling down on my mattress or whatever, and the lady that works with Percy, Matilda, she sings the Icaros, which are the healing songs. These are songs that the the curanderos and the healers would say were taught to them by the plants, while when they ingested the plants, they've been given these Icaros as healing songs. So on the last night, at the end of each night, you're brought in and there's a personal healing done over you. And
this is once the effects of the ayahuasca have dissipated and you're kind of
oh,
back to...
not at all.
Okay,
no,
so you're
in the middle. You're in the middle of
yeah,
this,
yeah.
like, and I was brought back in for the personal healing onto my mattress, and I had like these chimes. These chimes were kind of put over my head, and the lady Matilda is she's standing over me singing the Icaro, like, and she's blowing this mapacho, which is cleaning my energies. But I'm literally, as I'm sitting on the edge of my mattress, I'm kind of I'm kneeling down and my hands are on the ground. And, these chimes are kind of put over my head, and it was literally like I was transported through just dimensions, just of colours and of entities and of everything. And it felt like, again, as with the DMT experience, it felt like I broke through. And when I broke through, there was what I can only describe as entities, or what you might want to call angels, or whatever your word is, like, I would use the word entities, but it felt like they were literally there just waiting for me to come. And I'm there on the edge of my mattress and I'm absolutely rattling. This energy, the whole energy of the universe felt like it was flowing through the top of my head. Like, I felt like I could pick the world up. That's what I felt like. I've never felt an energy like it in my life, like, and all of a sudden, this lion came to me, and the lion came to me in the colours of the chakras. So there's the 7, in the Kabbalah religion, which is Jewish mysticism, they say that there's 7 energy points in your body, and each energy point has a different colour. So the line was made up of all the colours of the chakras.
Okay, and sorry, when you say line, you mean like a straight line as opposed to
No,
a big cat?
I mean like as in a big cat.
Okay, yeah, no, just
yeah. No, I mean as in a big cat. But this line came to me, and it was absolutely roaring in my face, and every part of the line was made up of another tiny little line. So, and I'm literally just rattling on the edge of my mattress, and she's singing this personal healing over me, like, you know, and I've never experienced anything like it in my life. And, you know, as she lifted the chimes off me, you know, I literally collapsed on my mattress, like I was wrecked afterwards, you know.
And what did that like symbolise, or what did you take from that, or was that just, you know, a trippy experience?
No, the shamanic take on it would be that, you know, each one of us has a totem animal, which, you know, is a spirit guide throughout our life and that, like, you know. And they, you know, Percy would have said, you know, when I spoke to him the next day about it and that, like, he said, well, that's your power animal, that lion coming to you is, and that's, you know, it's a shamanic experience to go into the spirit world and to meet your totem animal, like, you know. And that was the experience I was having, like, you know. But it felt like I went to heaven, like, that's, you know, again, if people haven't listened to the first one, it could take us all night to go back over every stage of where we were, you know.
As I opened with, you know, and again, to reiterate, if you're this far into this podcast, you're really not going to get what we're talking about unless you've put in a bit of work and listened to the first one. Not that it's work, it's I've listened to it 2 or 3 times since, being honest.
Yeah.
But so sorry, no, so do continue, like.
Yeah, so that was kind of the end then. So, you know, I was lying on the mattress, and you're kind of waiting for everybody else then who are having their kind of personal healings and that, you know. But I'm out of it. Like, I've never felt love like it in my life. Like, I was in love with the universe in that very moment. And I remember, you know, Dermot, you know, my mate that came with me, like my best mate, like, he was asleep on the mattress beside me, farting away, like, and I'm literally having this experience in what I can only describe as heaven, like, you know. And then, so at the end of the night, he's like, oh, he wakes up and he's like, are you ready to go or whatever? And I was like, yeah. So he's kind of held me, because I'm gone at this stage. Like, I'm in the cosmos. Like, I'm
off to the
gone.
races.
I'm off to the races, like, you know. And as we were walking out, Matilda, the lady who was singing, now this is a 70-year-old Shipibo woman, like, you know, and she's kind of going to walk back to her hut, and we go to walk back to her hut, and I'm literally swooning. I'm telling her how much I love her and how much, you know, I thank you for that. I just couldn't thank her enough. I poured my heart out to her, and, you know, that it was only the next day that I realised she's got fucking no English. So she probably was like, what the hell is this fella on about, you know? But we kind of walked her home to her hut, and she gave us both a big hug and all of that, like, and Darren was like pushing me home. He's like, will you come on, like, you know? So we get home kind of to our hut or whatever, and, you know, everyone's coming and we're talking, and everyone's you know, talking about their experiences that night or whatever. And, you know, again, as per would happen every night, like, I was kind of left on the balcony on my own, so everyone had gone to bed at this stage. And, you know, we spoke about how, you know, the psychedelics, they come in waves, you know, and, you know, we experienced that over in Holland, I suppose. That was one thing we spoke about, you know, was the way it comes in waves, so it's in and out. So everyone had gone to bed, and all of a sudden, this energy grew within me. You know, it literally was like, it was like, I thought, you know, I was coming down off the medicine, that it was kind of starting to work its way out of my system or whatever, but it literally brought me through what I can only describe as, again, you know, and it's, you know, dimensions. That's the only word I can use. Like, I was brought through these dimensions, and I kind of broke through, and, you know, this is going to be where people are going to find it very hard to really believe what I'm saying, but I can only, again, as I say, I can only offer you my experience, and I can only promise you that I'm telling you this as truthful as I can, and that this is what I took from it, and this is what I believe that it was like, you know. But I, you know, broke through these dimensions or whatever, and I came to what I can only describe as, you know, for one, so to not to use the word God, I suppose, the creative energy of the universe. That's what I would describe it as. I would describe it as the creative energy of the universe, and it was absolutely, you know, till the day I die, I'll never forget it. It was energy like I've never ever experienced, you know, and it felt like I came to what I can only describe as a mountain of energy. This mountain of energy that was like the brightest light you can imagine. And as I tried to look up and try to kind of see the face, or whatever you'd like to say, of what this thing was, I couldn't. It was literally, it felt like it was blinding me, and it became so strong that I had to beg it to stop. It was too much. Like, I literally felt like I was going to implode. But it was pure love. It was absolute forgiveness. There was no judgment. There was none of them things that you hear about in, you know, the Christian religion, or you hear about in, you know, Islam, or any of them kind of things. That's, you know, it was none of them things. It was absolute forgiveness. It was absolute understanding. And I'm bawling, I'm crying the happiest tears of my life, like, you know, and I'm there, and all of a sudden it starts to show me, and it starts teaching me these lessons, and it's saying, you are God, and not only are you God, but everybody is God.
Yeah, you're not the God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, not just, oh, it's you.
Yeah,
God.
come worship me, like.
Everybody is God. All we are is God experiencing this life. He is experiencing this life, and you are an avatar for God. Is how I would kind of describe it. Like, you know, it was saying that, you know, you're here to learn and to grow, and, you know, it's all just a story to evolve your soul. And it began to show me, you know, the thing with Jesus Christ. This is the very first time I began to have these thoughts of Jesus Christ, and it showed me that Jesus Christ was a healer, that Jesus Christ was a shaman nearly. And you think about the things he done, like, he healed people, like, you know, and he gave people, I suppose, he had amazing wisdom, he had amazing teachings and all of these kind of things, like, you know. But it was showing me that he never wanted religions in his name. He never wanted anything like that. He spoke about healing, and he spoke about love, you know, love thy neighbour, like, you know, all of them kind of things. Like, they were his main teachings. And then religions kind of used that and turned it into a business, like, you know. And it was kind of showing me all of these things, like, you know. But it's an experience I'll never forget, you know. Yeah, it's an experience I'll never forget. And the things it showed me, that, you know, some of them I just, you know, you can't put them into words. Like, again, you know, I spoke about in the first podcast that, you know, words fail you, like, you know, that I can't fully articulate everything that I was seeing. I'm grasping at and trying to remember, you know, bits of what was happening, like, you know. But that's how I would have looked at it, and that's the perspective I took from it, like, you know.
Yeah, and I think your experience is shared by a lot of people who've done certain ceremonies or similar ceremonies, say,
Yeah.
and you often hear this, you know, our language fails them, that the words are just kind of insufficient as such. But you said that you felt this light, this warmth. You were, you know, bawling your eyes out with kind of tears of joy. You felt at one with the universe, or consciousness, or God, or whatever you want to say it. In our first conversation, we mentioned this idea of kind of duality, the yin and the yang, and, you know, night and day, and good and bad, and all the rest of it. Could you just as easily have seen the devil and be told that you're the devil and that we're all the devil?
Yeah, to be honest, I've never heard that experience. I've heard people say, you know, that they've had challenging experiences. Like, in the first podcast I spoke about John Healy, who said that, you know, he felt like the devil walked into the Maloka, like, you know. So he seen that energy, like, you know, and he felt that energy for sure. So he's seen that, like, you know. But, like, I've never heard anyone say that, you know, they've drank ayahuasca and came face to face with the devil. It's not an experience But again, have I heard everybody's
Of course.
ayahuasca experience? Absolutely not. But it's not one I've ever heard of.
No, it's interesting because there was another quote that I've been thinking about a lot since you said the last day. It was Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote, and what is it? What is it now? The line between, is it good and evil, runs straight down the line of each and every one of us, or something to that effect.
I think the quote is, the line of good and evil does not run between religions and banking systems and governments. It runs down the very centre of every man.
Yeah, it's not through societies, say, it's through it's the individual.
All, and that's, it's only as I begin, it's only as I begin to, I'd said earlier that, I'm beginning to, from the more I begin to read on Hinduism and Buddhism and all of that, they're definitely maps, and they've mapped out consciousness. And the Hindu and Buddhist philosophies and all of that, they believe that this whole planet that we live on and this whole experience that we're all having is Maya. That's what they call it. They call it an illusion. And the illusion is that you are separate from God. And the only way to experience the illusion is that everything has to have duality. So everything has to have its opposite. You can't have up without down, in without out. You can't experience something without first having experienced its opposite. If you know what I mean. You can't experience. I couldn't tell you to put everything in this room up.
I know what you mean.
Know what I mean? It has to have its opposite. So it has to have down. So what the Hindu philosophy and what the Buddhist philosophy is that, this is all just an illusion and a play, and you come here to play this game, and you come here to be part of the illusion, and the illusion is that you are separate from God. And that you come here, you play this game for how many incarnations, you learn and you grow, and it's all about returning to God.
And sorry, but by the game you mean life in general, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Life is the game, So that's where the idea of duality comes from. You can't, to experience being God, you have to first experience not being God. And that's why you've come here. You've come here to not experience being God. And, as you evolve your consciousness and you grow your consciousness and you begin to find your way home, the end result of that is that at some stage your soul, through many lifetimes of incarnations and all of that it merges back into God. And your soul will no longer exist,
And so the idea of, meditation and fasting and exercise and dance or whatever it is an effort to get towards God or get towards enlightenment. And the opposite to that is basically throwing caution to the wind and not doing anything. And I mean, if that's what you do, if you just don't bother to do anything, you're guaranteed the opposite, which is suffering. Essentially,
for sure.
Like if you don't if you don't work to get money, you've no money for food. If you don't have food, you go hungry. If you don't, prepare the fire, you go cold that evening. There's a certain amount of work that's involved in
that's why
in avoiding suffering. Suffering is guaranteed, say.
And I guess that is the kind of the Buddhist take on it is that the world is suffering, and the suffering comes from our attachment to the illusion,
life.
Right? So to life, so the belief that you are just literally just this body that's a meat body and all of them kind of things. We attach ourselves to cars and materialism and all of that kind of stuff, like having nice cars and nice houses and all that stuff. But your suffering will come from your attachment to the illusion.
Yes, and I think it's fair to say capitalism is that on steroids to a degree.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that people that I've heard who've gone down the kind of the psychedelics route, the meditation route, the enlightenment route, the further on down that path they go to enlightenment, call it, the further away they get from kind of materialism.
Yeah, well, when why I'm beginning to kind of wonder lately if the likes of Hinduism and Buddhism are the final level in the game. It's because what they teach you is no attachment. So you kind of give up the material things. pardon me, you give up the material things in life, and you kind of start to dedicate your life towards much more towards like yoga and meditation and all of them kind of things. You see, you know, that they give up on the material life. They begin to realise that the material life is just suffering, that's all it can bring with it. Like you build a house, and your attachment to that house then makes you kind of think, oh geez, I better put up cameras in case somebody robs me or somebody comes in and breaks into my house. But that's just attachment. So you're attached to the material world. And when you begin to follow the path of the Buddha, or you begin, you know, the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the main kind of books within Hinduism, like, you know, one of the main scriptures within Hinduism, it is an absolute, I can't recommend that book enough to people, because what it does is it begins to teach you about, you know, exactly a lot of the kind of things that I'm kind of talking about there, like that it's, you know, it's attachment to the ego, it's attachment to the material life that's causing all your suffering, you know. And it's beautifully put, like, you know, it's a very nice read, like, and it's a short read, like, too. But
and how accessible is that to people? I mean, you're well on down this path. If you had been handed that book 10 years ago, say, would you have made sense of it, or would it have all sounded like, you know, Deepak Chopra-esque mumbo jumbo? You know?
No, definitely not. No, it's not. It's certainly not that type of a book. Like, you know, if you're interested in again, it talks about how meditation is, you know, the path to finding God, and it's about giving up, you know, the material world, and it's about giving up on like, you know, the five senses in your body, instead of constantly trying to pleasure the five senses. What it's saying is, if we take food as an example, you know, we look for happiness externally in life. We look for happiness externally in life, and it always seems to be, you know, as I say with food, if you've a bar of chocolate and you eat a square of chocolate, you know, it's a very short-lived kind of, oh geez, that's gorgeous, isn't it? And not too long after that, it's kind of, oh geez, I'd love another square of that chocolate.
You're chasing it, yeah.
So you're constantly, when you constantly try to pleasure the senses, you're constantly chasing that pleasure. And what Hinduism and Buddhism are teaching is that the only true path to happiness, the only happiness that lives within you constantly, is the path to God. And that's, you know, that's where you will find your stillness, or you will find, you know, your peace of mind. The more you chase happiness externally, the more you are becoming engrossed in the illusion, in the game of Maya. But the more you look for your happiness inside yourself, is the more you begin to reconnect with God, and them material things don't seem to have their part in your life anymore, and you begin to dedicate your life to God. You know, like, you know, one of the big teachings that, you know, I was taught out in the jungle by, I told you about that artist Morrow that I kind of bought. He would be Percy's best friend, and he comes and he helps with the facilitating of the ceremonies. Now, he doesn't drink ayahuasca anymore, but he said now, and again, the memory's a funny thing, because I don't know whether he said it to me or whether he said it to Healy, and Healy told me, but he said that if you come out here and drink ayahuasca and you have this experience, and you don't then dedicate your life to God, you're just another person who's come out here and drank ayahuasca.
Just an ayahuasca tourist.
Exactly. You've missed the point. You've missed the point.
And like, from there, like, what do you do with that kind of information? I mean, like, let's say hypothetically I was to hop on a plane now in the next, you know, month or two or whatever, and head off and do that, and, you know, have a similar experience to you or so. Like, what's the odds of me dedicating my life to that? Or it's not even the right way to look at it, I suppose, but it's a bit of an ask, is it? Like, you know, for people to forgo all the trappings of society, the flash car and that, it's a bit of an ask. Would you?
You see, that's the thing. Like, when you found that higher power, when you found that God, it's not an ask in any way, like, you know, it's not, it doesn't feel in any way like you're, you know, you're giving up on any of them.
I know what you mean. It's like a supreme
having a hold over you.
It's like a supreme act of selfishness. Nearly, you're chasing that. You know, to dedicate your life to finding God or consciousness or enlightenment or whatever it is. That's almost like a supreme act of selfishness in a sense, as opposed to giving up stuff.
Yeah,
which would be a sacrifice. This is you're all into.
Yeah, but you know, it's not like, you know, again, I said in the last podcast, it's not like I'm sitting here wanting to have that bar of chocolate. Like, I can go out for a meal with people and, you know, everyone can order dessert. I'm not sitting there in my mind going, oh my god, I love a fucking dessert, but I'm not having a dessert because, you know, I don't want, you know.
Yeah, I'm being true to my experience in the jungle.
I genuinely, and, you know, I'm not saying that I would never eat dessert, like, I do, of course, like, but it's very few and far between them times, like, but it's never, like, when I was over in Australia and I was training and all of them kind of things, and I was boxing over in Australia, and I needed to, obviously, like yourself, like, to make weight and all that thing. I remember when I would have been trying to make weight, it felt like a chore, didn't it? Like, you were giving up all them nice things and you're like, oh jeez, I can't wait till this is over now till I, you know, can start having, you know, them kind of foods again and all of that. That's not the way it is, like, you know. Right now, it's, for me, it's not a problem not eating them things. Like, they when you begin to look for happiness inside yourself, you don't need the external pleasures anymore, and that's what these kind of things teach you, that to find true happiness and a lasting happiness, you know, the slice of cake that you're going to have is very what's the word I'm looking for? Is very temporary.
Yeah.
So it's a temporary happiness that literally lasts. It's a mouth pleasure, isn't it? And as soon as that slice of cake is gone, all you're thinking about is the next slice of cake, isn't it? Like, you know, so it's, you know, which is the opposite when you begin to find happiness within yourself. You don't need them outside. You don't need the external things. Like, they don't bring you true happiness. They don't bring you peace of mind, you know.
Yeah, you're at peace with yourself. You don't need it. You don't need to kind of top up with stuff.
Exactly. And it's, you begin, you know, as I say, you begin to look at the external world as an illusion, as a kind of as an illusion that, you know, we all kind of buy into. But when you begin to look within yourself, you find a peace of mind, and you find a stillness of mind. That's what you begin to find, and you begin to find that you don't need the external pleasures to find happiness.
You certainly don't. I'd agree with you wholeheartedly. But where I'm kind of maybe not losing you, but just not on the same page to a degree, is you do, you know, have to go to work and have to pay your bills and, you know, look after your kid and pick them up from school.
Yeah,
and,
no, for sure.
You know, do the whole life thing,
no,
you know.
For sure. But, you know, again, to go back to Jesus Christ's teachings, like Jesus Christ taught, you are in this world, you are not from this world. And that was the big teaching of Jesus Christ. So you come here and you experience life, but you also, you know, the more you begin to realise that this is a temporary thing, and that's where so many people's suffering comes from, is that we try to make every second of every day, every millisecond, this universe and everything around it is constantly changing, constantly moving. Everything, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything is temporary, so it's in a constant state of flux, and so much of our suffering comes from trying to, you know, make these things permanent. We're trying to take a structure, which is the universe, which is completely temporary, and we're trying to make it permanent, and that's where a lot of our suffering comes from in the world.
You just made me think of me mowing the lawns here during the summer.
Yeah.
So there's like the lawn is always fucking, especially during the summer, it's always fucking growing. I'm always fucking mowing it, and I'm always trying to keep it, you know, the same. But it's constantly changing and it's constantly evolving, and nothing, everything is temporary.
Yeah.
But there's a certain solace that I get from having the lawns cut and the hedges cut, and having a certain amount of order. And again, this whole idea of, you know, order and chaos, you know, getting back to the duality of things. So there's a certain amount of both, which is kind of necessary. Is there too much order or maybe too much chaos in what you're talking about, in being I don't know, kind of enlightened all the time. Like, how do you know you've gone too far down the enlightenment road, or can you, if that makes sense?
Oh, well, I couldn't tell you that, sir. I wouldn't, sir, absolutely wouldn't classify myself as enlightened in any way. Like, that's what I say to you. I say these psychedelics, they don't offer you enlightenment. Like, enlightenment is something you attain when you can make that a prolonged, that's an everyday occurrence in your life. Like, all I'm saying is that the psychedelic gives you a window into what enlightenment can be, and it's up to you then to work on your path towards that.
It's something to strive for.
Strive towards. It's something to strive towards. And as I said, like, I believe the psychedelics should be the smallest part of your spiritual practice. Like, it should be based, like, your foundation should be meditation and yoga and fasting and, holotropic breath work and using the flotation tanks and all of them kind of things. I believe that each one of them is just a tool. It's just a tool to be able to help you evolve your soul and to further evolve your soul and for you to explore consciousness. Every one of them is a tool, and that you use all the tools at your disposal to grow your consciousness as much as you can. Like,
In relation to that and the kind of the afterlife and the reincarnation and the idea that you've lived before in some sense, is that in relation to your ancestors, not you? Were you your ancestors, if that makes sense? Like, we have a kind of a collective unconscious that has evolved.
Yeah.
Is the idea that you've lived before, for want of a better term, is that what instinct is?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. So, some people would say, like, your instinct is your soul kind of speaking to you. So they believe that that you've got your soul and then you've got the ego or whatever. Like, but when you instinctually know something, that's your kind of soul vibrating to tell you, you're on the right path, or you're doing what you're meant to be doing. Like, that's the right thing for you. And a lot of times, we don't pay attention to our instincts, don't we not? Like,
I think a lot of the time you'll hear people saying, something told me I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway, and I fucking regret it.
Yeah.
But again, there's a fucking rabbit hole and a half. So we were on the end of day 3.
The end of day 3, yeah. So,
and you've had this, awe-inspiring, unbelievable experience, and that was on the back of, was it 2 kind of bad?
Yeah, so the two before that had been kind of 2 very, I suppose they were very hard. They were
traumatizing
very hard experiences. Yeah, they were tough. As I said, I was about to fucking pack my bag and hit the road at one stage.
Having organised the whole thing, essentially.
Exactly. And after telling everybody that I was going out here for a lovely spiritual experience and all that, but only for John Healy's experience, I wouldn't. I was gone out the door, I was getting out of there, and he kind of talked me around into it, and, It turned out then that I was out there to heal for somebody else. That, I guess that's what, day 3 would have been for people who maybe haven't heard the first one. Day 3 turned out to be that I was out there to heal for somebody else. The first 2 nights were very, I suppose they were sexually demonic visions that I was getting. Very, very, it wasn't nice stuff in any way, And when I went to Percy and I said to him, look, I said, this is what I'm seeing. I need to try and understand this, and he'd asked me, had I been sexually abused in my life, and I said I hadn't. And he asked me, had anybody else been abused? And I said they had. And he told me that I was there to heal for them. So I was obviously, he told me that I had to keep them in my intentions, and I had to keep them in my intentions when I was drinking the ayahuasca. And I hadn't purged, so over the first 2 days, so again, the purge is, you're either getting sick or it's coming through the other end, I suppose, is the nicer way to say it, so I hadn't purged over the first 2 days, but everybody else was purging around me, but as soon as I drank that cup on the 3rd night, and I brought that person into my intention or whatever, it was not too long afterwards I was out in the toilet and I was purging an awful lot through me, to be honest with you.
Making up for the last 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as I said in the first podcast, I was, as I was coming in to go back into the Maloka, I ended up kind of standing out on this wooden structure, like with my hands, and I felt like I was stuck there. I couldn't get out, and I felt like I was looking into what I could only describe as the pits of hell, you know. And I could see, you know, them demons and them kind of things, like, you know. That's what my visuals were. And I was then brought in at the end of that for the personal healing, where, you know, as I said, I got, you know, brought to what I can only describe as heaven, like. And, you know, these entities were around me, and the lion came to me and all of that. And, you know, that was the third night, like, you know.
When you say, you know, demons and demonic sexual scenes and things like that, like, what springs to my mind, I suppose, are almost not cartoonish images, but images of, like, devils, you know, forked tails and pitchforks and horns and red and half goat, half man type thing.
No, they, I guess, you know, to say, you know, cartoonish, you know, isn't, you know, again, it's hard to find the language to say these things, but it would have been the things, you know, the things I would have seen would have been like, maybe, I suppose it would have been scenes of maybe where people were being abused and things like that, like, and it was where men were, you know, treating women in a bad way, I suppose, is the best way, you know, without going into too much detail about it, like, you know. It was not nice sexual scenes was kind of what I was seeing, like, you know. And it was a lot to do with people sex being forced on them and all of them kind of things, like. So that's what I was kind of seeing, you
all
know?
The negative and worst aspects
the
of
worst
that
aspects of sex, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of day 3, or
that's the end of day 3. Yeah.
So sorry,
yeah.
At the end of day 3, you walked off back to your kind
Back
of
to the
hut,
hut,
having
everyone
had
went to
this,
bed.
you know, unbelievable experience.
Yeah, the experience of me going there, and then I went back to my hut. Everyone had gone to bed, and as I said, that was when I got transported again. So I'm sitting there on my own, and another massive wave of this hits me, and I'm transported again through the dimensions. And, you know, I come upon this light, and it's, you know, it's teaching me incredible lessons. It's teaching me, you know, till the day I die, it'll stay with me, like, you know.
And when you say, like, teaching you incredible lessons, is there a lesson or a couple of lessons specifically? Or?
Yeah, well, as I said, you know, it was showing me that, you know, we are all God. We are all. We are all. I suppose an avatar is the word you want to use. Like, you know, we are all God experiencing the universe through us. Like, you know, you are God experiencing himself and the universe through you.
Yes.
That's what you are doing. Like, you know, and it was showing me these things, and it was showing me the different things about religions. And, you know, a lot of the things it was showing me is things that I'm now reading very similar things within Buddhism and Hinduism, and, you know, as I said, all them Eastern religions. Like, you know, we in the West, like, we've probably spent the last few thousand years, you know, going down a very scientific route, like, you know. But, you know, with Buddhism and Hinduism and you know, things like that, they went in and they explored the mind. They've spent thousands of years exploring consciousness, like, you know. They've sat in deep meditation, and they've come to these different, you know, conclusions and stuff like that, like, you know. And again, we have these ideas that, you know, these religions that, you know, and again, they're not to say that they're religions, but I suppose philosophies is a word we could use for them, or whatever. But, you know, we kind of think of, you know, the Buddha came, and then all of a sudden, you know, that was the start of that kind of thing. But everything is in a state of evolution, like, you know. And, you know, the very beginning of them kind of, you know, them thought patterns and stuff like that, they began very early with what were called fertility cults. And the idea that God is a male god in the sky, and that the planet Earth is the female planet, began with these fertility cults, right? And what they began to understand was obviously when they would have had sex with their partner, a child was conceived. So they, you know, they would have came inside the woman, and they would have fertilized the egg or whatever, like, you know. And what they then began to think was as it rained down onto the earth, after every rain the sun would come and the plant would begin to flower. So we would begin to see, you know, flowers and fruits and all of that kind of thing. So they began to think that the rain was the semen from God, so a male god in the sky.
Especially if you're in a part of the world that has, you know, a dry season and a wet season.
Yeah,
so you're literally going from just barren desert to to life, essentially.
Yeah. So that's, you know, that's where the idea of, you know, a male god in the sky and a female mother comes from, you know. And within these fertility cults, they're within their rituals, they use psilocybin mushrooms, like, you know, that was a part of their ritual, you know, and that was a part of the paganism. And, you know, you hear of them pagan orgies and all of them kind of things. And what that was a, you know, like a way to show the gods, you know, this is what we need you to do. This was to bring on their crops and to bring on their things, like, you know, so they were reenacting what they wanted the god to do, like, you know. And that's, you know, that's how a lot of them kind of things started. And then, you know, what then kind of happened was them fertility cults, then it kind of went over, they went into kind of places like India and stuff like that. And the plant, at the very beginning of the Hindu philosophies and that, there's talk of the plant soma. And on page 2 of the Rig Veda, so the Rig Veda is, I guess, is the equivalent to the Bible or whatever, you know, there's a line on page 2 in the Rig Veda that says, we drank the plant of soma and we became like gods, aware of our own immortality. That's on page 2 of the Hindu text. So if it's on page 2 of the Hindu text, then obviously that plant played a very integral part in their rituals and their understandings of consciousness. But what would have happened in and around them kind of times then was that people began to take control of the soma, like, you know, so they would give them to some people and not give them to other people. So then what happened with the Hindu, how it evolved from that, was that they decided that, you know, maybe the plants taught them as well. Maybe the soma taught them that they didn't need the plants to get to these altered state of consciousness, that they could do it through meditation and through fasting and all of these kind of things. So that's how Hinduism began to evolve. And then from Hinduism, Buddhism began to evolve. So everything is kind of an evolution. Like all religions and all that are an evolution from these fertility cults, like, you know.
And listen, there was more than likely something that predated the fertility cults.
Absolutely, of course.
And something that predated them, you know.
Exactly. And, you know, as we said on the last podcast, there's rock art of, you know, that they're saying now is 40 or 50,000 years ago. And there's shamanic drawings, like, you know, there's that bee, and the whole bee is covered in magic mushrooms, like, you know.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And a couple of times you've come back to this idea of kind of East and West. Another way of looking at that is old and new, really, because, I mean, the West as we call it, essentially is kind of Northern America and Northern American influence on, let's say, mostly mainland Europe and I don't know, maybe Australia to a degree, and predominantly English speaking places, but that's all very new. They only fucking discovered North America, or let's say Europeans only discovered North America a couple of hundred years ago. We've been doing what we've been doing in the East, as we call it, for thousands of years.
Well, you know,
hundreds of thousands of years.
Well, the earliest writings from the Rig Veda, I think, are 3,500 years old. But, you know, they would say that it's an awful lot longer than that.
Which
like,
that's the writings.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
There was the pre-written words, exactly. You know, before there was writing. Obviously,
they didn't just think all this up and then just write it on the day. Like, you know what I mean? These were orally passed down traditions. Again, the same as with the shamanic cultures and all of that. Like these legends and these kind of different, you know, ways of living were always orally passed down before, you know. Our earliest writing is the Sumerian texts that we found, and they are 5,000 years old. So we are only writing so far that we found 5,000 years, like, you know, that's the Sumerian texts are the earliest writings that we found, you know. So these would have been passed down orally for many, many thousands of years before that, like, you know.
No, absolutely. And like, Göbekli Tepe is dated at what, circa 12,000?
Yeah.
So someone wasn't, or there wasn't, you know, there wasn't a tribe or a civilization or whatever you want to call it that was born 12,000 years ago that all of a sudden, you know, created a large city with temples and all sorts. That was passed down through generations and generations over hundreds and thousands of years.
One of the most interesting parts that I find, you know, personally, that I find about Göbekli Tepe is that on their stone structures, do you see the way they've kind of chiseled out the stone carvings? And they've chiseled out on them, like, they've got different animals. different animals that were never even native to the area, that are found, you know, the far side of the world. And yet they tell us that these people had no communication with each other, that these people were hunter-gatherers that lived probably within, you know, a 40 or 50 or maybe even 100-mile radius all their life. But yet how were they carving animals from the far side of the world?
Yeah, but it beggars belief, a lot of that stuff.
It's puzzling to the, you know, to the extent that you have to really question the history we're being given, don't you, like, you know, because that in itself, you know, how, if they haven't either communicated with people the far side of the world who've told them about these animals, or if they haven't visited these places themselves, how have they been carving these things onto stones?
But getting back to what we mentioned earlier about the likes of Newgrange, like there are, I can't think of the guy's name, but I'm keen to get him on, who's an expert in Irish mythology, say, and you know he lives in Drogheda, and he's a photographer as well, and he constantly takes photographs, and he lives, eats, breathes and sleeps Irish mythology. His name just escapes me at the minute. I'll stick him in the kind of notes after
try
this.
And get him on.
He'd be a great lad, but he'll often say that, you know, he's just stumbling around in the dark with a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that he kind of knows, you know, like even the most credible stuff that he would say, he always says it in a kind of, you know, this is kind of hopefully kind of the way we think it might be. And he lives here. Yeah. With the likes of Göbekli Tepe and a lot of these places that have been uncovered in places like that in Iraq and that kind of that kind of fertile crescent
I think they call it the Near East. Is that what it is?
The Near East would make sense.
Yeah, it's only something I've heard recently. I'd never heard that term before, like the Near East. Yeah.
Here's a term for you. You've probably heard of Ireland or Japan being referred to as the land of the rising sun. Yeah. This guy wrote, the guy I'm talking about, the Irish mythology guy, wrote a book called, I think it's called Ireland, the land of the setting sun. Right. Which I think is particularly fucking cool. Yeah. But again, he lives here. Yeah. But the people that are studying Göbekli Tepe, you know, they travel there, and
they're Germans and
yes, exactly. Yeah, so they're not growing up surrounded by it. Yeah. So how the fuck could they ever expect to know for certain what was going on when they're, you know, digging this stuff up, and they've essentially got the fossilized version of what was there.
Yeah, they don't know the culture of the area. And
no, they haven't a clue. You know, it's been lost through time. Like.
Yeah, like it's, you know, it kind of reminds me of a funny story in Machu Picchu. Like when we were in Machu Picchu, and the guide was kind of telling us about Machu Picchu, he was saying that it was found in 1950, and it was the city up on the top of the mountain was deserted or whatever. And then, you know, a couple of lines down, he's telling us how, you know, the first person who came there, I think he was either English or American, and he's supposed to have found this lost city. But there was tribes living there. I was like,
define found.
Me and Neely were like, what do you mean? Like, there's, like, how can, you know, if something's found, then it surely has to be lost, does it not? Like, you know. Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, well there was tribes, but when you speak to the locals from Peru and stuff like that, they tell a very, very different story. And you know, these archaeologists are coming in and they're after being trained in, you know, America or England and all of that kind of stuff. But I would be more inclined to believe somebody whose culture, you know, they understand the culture of these things, like, you know, and they understand, you know, the writings and the carvings and all of that stuff better than we ever will be able to understand. But we, you know, the West kind of seems to go in, or, you know, science seems to go in and kind of, you know, but it just says that this is what it is, and it sometimes doesn't take, you know, that view into account, like, you know.
Yeah, we see it in kind of more modern history. There's a great saying that history is written by the winners. I love that. Yeah, like, you know, true, like what would the story of World War II be had the Germans won it? It wouldn't have been the story. Obviously, it wouldn't have been just the story that's told now, replacing the names. You know, it would have been the triumph of the Holocaust.
Oh, for sure.
And you and everybody else listening. Even though that might sound kind of abhorrent to say, if that's what you've been fed and that's what's been taught in schools, you know, that's what you take. And we spoke about this before we started talking. This idea of, you know, not taking what you say for granted, or for what I say, or not for granted, not taking what you say as gospel, or not taking what I say as gospel, or fucking anybody else. You know, take in as much information from as many credible sources as you can, and kind of try and make up your own mind. And again, that not to relentlessly bring this back to kind of religion bashing, but that's the opposite of what organised religions do. They don't say, you know, go forth and read all about this and that and the other and make up your own opinion. They say, you know, come to us. We're the guys with the answer. We'll show you. And even at that, they tell you to come and listen, but they don't, in the same breath that they're telling you to come and listen, they don't give it you succinctly so that you can understand it. It's all, you know, smoke and fucking mirrors, and you have to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. Exactly.
Oh, by the way, bring your purse.
Exactly. It's like a soap, like it's like Coronation Street, as opposed to, you know, a documentary. If that analogy makes sense.
That. And I think as soon as you define yourself as, you know, believing in one religion over the other, I think you've completely shut yourself off to, you know, as I've said before, there's amazing wisdom at the base of every religion, but there's just so much bullshit piled on top of all of that wisdom that it's very hard to decipher which is the wisdom and which is the bullshit. But I think as soon as you kind of say, right, I'm Christian, or you know, even at that, I'm Hinduism, or I'm Buddhist, or I'm whatever, you're closing yourself off to the teachings of all the prophets, because, you know, I would believe that, you know, God's message is being told by many different people, and you want to hear that from as many different people as you can, like, you know. And why close yourself off and say that, you know, I'm following Jesus and no one but Jesus, when, you know, when the teachings of Krishna or the teachings of the Buddha or Muhammad, when they have amazing teachings too, that you can live, that can help you to live a better life, or, you know, that can help you find that internal happiness, like, you know.
No, absolutely. And like, look, let's say if there's been 10 prophets, just let's pick a number. Let's say there's been 10 prophets. Why would you pick one when you can pick the 10, and not only just pick the 10, but out of all their teachings, only really pay attention to the teachings that every single one of the last 10 of them all said. Do you know that kind of way?
I was reading a very interesting book there recently enough. I think his name is Morris Evans Buke, Buke or something.
Okay.
But the book is called Cosmic Consciousness, and it's his kind of, I suppose his hypothesis, I guess, is that, you know, about that there's different levels of consciousness that are to be experienced by humanity. And he would have said that, you know, 300,000 years ago we became self-conscious. So, you know, we began to understand, you know, that you kind of, I think, you know, so you not only did we begin to think, but we began to know that we began to think, like, you know. So but, you know, I think that's getting off the point a little, but he was saying that, you know, 300,000 years ago we became self-conscious, and what kind of happened between all them times we've evolved and all of that. And he was saying that, you know, then came people like, you know, again, as I said, like Jesus and Buddha and, you know, these kind of people, and they were just normal people who attained cosmic consciousness. So he's saying that's the next step in our evolution. So he's saying that the next step in our evolution is cosmic consciousness, and that's what them people kind of attained, either through meditation or through whatever way they got there.
The prophets call them.
Yeah, let's call them the prophets or whatever. And, you know, he would say that that's the next step in our evolution, that's what we are all destined to evolve towards. And as we begin to evolve towards that point, you know, the whole planet will begin to evolve to a cosmic consciousness. And again, it's nearly like saying, isn't it, the next level in the game, like, you know, that we'll all step up onto the next level in the game. And as more and more people begin to evolve to that kind of level of consciousness, it rises up the whole planet, as it were, like, you know. I just, you know, it's definitely a very interesting book. It was definitely a good read. For sure.
No, and I love that idea of the different levels in the game, and I think that there are, in keeping with that analogy, there are different series. So there's game 1, which has 10 levels, and there's game 2, which has 10 levels. Do you know that? And
for sure.
And so on.
Like. Every level has its own level in a way, like.
Well, every level has several levels within it, say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
We mentioned just in relation to kind of prophets and people that would have been, more enlightened, say, than others at the time, and you have the kind of standard guys that everyone would have heard of, Christ, Muhammad, the Buddha, etc. Would you throw the likes of, maybe I'm reaching here a little bit, but the likes of maybe John Lennon and Bob Marley into the mix there?
Yeah, I would think you look at the message Bob Marley spoke about. Like, Bob Marley spoke about love, he spoke about peace, he spoke about forgiveness. Like, I love that line in his song, like, none but ourselves can free our mind. It's up to you to free your mind. And that's what meditation is like. You're trying to quieten the mind, and you're trying to free yourself from the mind. Like, Krishna said the battle to quieten the mind is 1,000 times harder than the battle on the battlefield with 1,000 men.
Yeah.
And that's in the Bhagavad Gita, and that's one of the the sayings from Krishna. And that is the thing with meditation and all of that. Like, meditation is it's hard to quieten the mind, but as soon as you begin to quieten the mind, meditation kind of teaches you as well. We all kind of, we think that we're always thinking every thought that comes into our head. But when you sit down and you meditate, and when you begin to make that a practice, what begins to happen is that you become the watcher of the thoughts that are coming into your head. And then you begin to question, where the fuck are them thoughts coming from? Because if I'm not thinking them, where are they coming from? So what the meditation is kind of showing you is that in your daily life, these thoughts are popping into your head, and you're then latching onto that thought, and you're going down a fucking 20-minute rabbit hole of, oh, fucking this fella said this to me, and I do this differently, and blah 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 blah, and this can go on for 20 minutes. Like, that's the the monkey mind, the ego.
I've been there.
Oh, look, and listen, I meditate and still go there, like, but what meditation is kind of teaching me is to nip that in the bud, more or less. Like, so as soon as the thought comes into my head and I get maybe, to get angry over something, I'll be angry for a second, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, right, you're getting angry. So I begin to see these thought patterns that are, coming up in my life, and you can, instead of it being a 20-minute rant in your head about something, you'll catch it at the very beginning, and you'll be like, right, that's what that is, and you can put it, but you nearly become the watcher of your thoughts. And you begin to, as I said, you begin to wonder, where are the thoughts coming from? Because it seems like consciousness is a constant stream of thoughts, like, and we latch onto them and we think, I'm the one thinking that, but you're the one that's latching onto that thought and then developing it into a much bigger thing, like,
Yeah, and like what you just described there is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, exactly that. That's what meditation is. Meditation is to try and quieten the mind, to try and find your inner peace. And again, that's inner happiness is in there, like, and the more, and that's what I was kind of, I suppose, saying earlier. The more you try to find your happiness outside, you begin to realise that you can't really find it out there, because it's not a permanent happiness. But when you begin to meditate, you begin to find a permanent happiness, a permanent stillness within you, like,
Yeah, no, and
I certainly don't want. I definitely don't want you to think that I walk around with a permanent fucking stillness. Definitely not.
Peace and love.
Not at all. I know I'm
doves following you around the place.
I'm at the very fucking basic level of meditation. You can trust me on that. Jesus.
I don't meditate.
Yeah.
I've given it a lash a couple of times, and I can kind of hear myself having said, I don't kind of buy into it, or that I'm not ready for it, or whatever. Now, mindfulness is a different thing. I would consider myself to be quite mindful, and I not so much anymore, but I used to be quite an angry person.
Yeah.
So I'd be driving. I put it this way, I'm not anymore. So I'll catch myself when those kind of thoughts come flooding in, like as you described there, and it often happens in the car. I'd be driving along, and without even realising it, I just kind of notice myself, and I'm a fucking ball of rage in the car.
yeah,
Fucking
yeah.
that fucking or maybe it's me that I'm angry at.
Yeah.
And then I kind of I don't know
Awareness.
how, but I become aware of
Yeah.
the fucking
Yeah.
of the state that I'm in basically.
Yeah.
And I kind of go, okay, Frano, relax your fucking cacks
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just try and fucking chill out a
Yeah.
little bit. And I'm able to kind of bring myself down.
Yeah.
Now, I'm never able to level myself out to the extent that a wind of a joint will do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is a strange one. It's something that
Yeah.
I've been thinking about
Yeah.
a lot.
I think and I think that's the benefit of meditation, is that when you begin to connect with the breath, the mind, the thinking mind that I've said, like, that is there, that's constantly always thinking, but you become the watcher of that thinking mind. That is always trying to live in the past or the future. It's never wanting to live in the present moment. And that's what the act of mindfulness or the act of meditation is. It's living in the very present moment, because there's no suffering. There's no suffering when you can get your mind to live in the very, very present moment. And when you begin to attach with the breath, so that's what with a lot of meditation practice, they teach you to follow the breath in and follow the breath out, and then the mind is constantly wandering. It's wanting to go here and it's wanting to drag you there. The mind is constantly active. It wants to be interacted with, and when that's the end goal, I guess, of meditation is to completely quieten the mind and to find that's your center. And when you find center, you find peace, and you find tranquility in there, like,
You're balanced. You're not
yeah,
leaning
you're
too
balanced,
far
exactly, one way or the other. Yeah. And I found that even I used to, when I was in Australia, I used to do the flotation tanks, like, and I was kind of meditating before, for maybe, I suppose, 6 months or so before I started doing the flotation tanks. And one time, and one time only, I had an experience in the flotation tank where my mind, there was no thoughts, there was only pure awareness. An understanding that I was existing, but nothing. No thoughts, no nothing. And it lasted for, it felt like it lasted for a half an hour. And it was absolutely the most peaceful and most tranquil I've ever felt in my life. And I could never get there again.
And you're kind of chasing that since nearly.
I done it once. I managed to do it once, and I've never been. And as I've said, I meditate every day. Like, I would probably meditate for between 40 minutes and an hour every day. Like, I do one in the morning, one at night time before bed. Like, and when you're following that breath, you can quieten the mind down for literally a second or two. And then all of a sudden the mind wants to drag you off into something else, like, oh God, geez, I need to do this now today, and what do I need to do in work or whatever. But when you read about people, like, who are very experienced meditators, like, I spoke the last time about Ram Dass, and I spoke about Alan Watts and all of these people, and they say over years of practice of meditation, you find your inner peace, you find that silence within yourself, like, and that becomes, I guess, if you treat the brain like any other muscle in your body, the more you train it and the more you exercise it, the stronger it's going to get, and the more able you are to perform that, to be able to perform that exercise, isn't it? Like,
No, absolutely. And like the brain is obviously isn't a muscle, but I think it obviously can be as an analogy, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm only using it as in that. But I think, as I've said, I think meditation, yoga, flotation tanks, psychedelics, I think they're all just tools, to help you with that, like, to help you expand your consciousness and quieten the mind and all of that. But they're all just tools to help you to get there, like,
Well, here's one for you, and just before we go on to that, the flotation device, that's sensory deprivation.
So
would typically with yoga, you're asked, sit in a comfortable sitting, and you obviously couldn't meditate with a thumbtack up your arse, basically. Do you know what I mean? So you have to kind of get comfortable.
Yeah.
And the sensory deprivation is basically that on steroids. So you're literally floating. The idea being that your weight isn't all on your arse, basically.
Yeah.
It's equally dispersed throughout your entire body. You're in complete darkness, so there's no visuals to kind of distract you. And so the more senses you can almost deprive yourself of, the easier it is to quieten your mind.
The mind and still the mind. Now, you know, with the sensory deprivation tanks, like, you get in there and it's the water is heated at body temperature, and it's full of Epsom salts, so you're literally floating on top of it. So it nearly, as you begin to meditate, you nearly feel like there's no body. So it's nearly like consciousness is out of the body. Like, it's nearly like an out-of-body experience, really. Like, you know, and
it's designed to do that, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And it's a closing off of the senses. So as you said, it's in the dark. You can't hear anything. You know, there's none of them sensory overload going on. Like, you know, so you're basically going into the mind if you can.
And is there sound played?
At the very beginning, they play maybe. Well, it's up to you. They ask you whether you want music played in there, or, you know, what I think what most people kind of generally tend to do is you've maybe 5 minutes of this, you know, very relaxing kind of music happening, and the music plays, and then it just drifts out or whatever, and then it's you trying to go inside yourself, like, you know.
Yeah, because the fear I'd have is that if I had none of my senses and I was in complete silence, all you'd hear would be your stomach gurgling or the blood flowing through your ears. Because you can't. Apparently, there's a room somewhere. I think it could be in MIT or in some university in the States, and it's the quietest place on earth. And I don't think anybody can bear any more than 2 minutes in it, or something ridiculously short space of time.
I've heard about that room.
Well, here's one for you now. On the whole quietening your mind thing and staying still and staying in the one place, I've never really been able to do that. Now, again, I haven't really gone out of my way to do it. I tend to be quite a busy person, and especially now, there's no fucking hope of me doing any such meditative practice in the next 6 months. Not a hope of it.
But
just too much
start
going
with
on.
5 minutes, Fran. That's the thing. Like, you know, there's nobody saying you need to do an hour of this every day. I didn't start by doing an hour every day. Like, I started by doing, you know, a 5 minute practice or a 10-minute practice, like, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But where I can get to a state of being in the moment, say, is when I'm out running.
Yeah.
Or I sparred recently for the first time in a long time.
I
didn't even spar. I did a bit of pad work.
Right, yeah.
But it was kind of active pad work. The guy that I was doing it with said he wanted to, as the saying goes, keep me honest. You know yourself, because if it's just pads you're hitting, and you're not remotely afraid of a pad
coming back
stiffing you in the mouth or whatever, you're not really into it as much. Like, so that really got that just reminded me of fucking how classed and how in the moment you absolutely have to be.
Big time.
Even like, you know, he's by no means trying to, you know, knock me to the ground or anything like nothing like it. But you're still, you know, everything's firing at the same time, and it's almost the exact opposite of quietening everything down. And the same when I'm out running, I do a lot of cross country running, so every footstep your senses are on fucking red alert, like, and you're in what's called flow, in a state of flow.
The present moment. That's
in,
what it
in
is.
the present moment.
Very present moment. You're not. The mind isn't thinking about the past, and it's not thinking about the future. The mind is only thinking about exactly, or focused on exactly what you're doing in that present moment.
So what's the difference between a flow state, say, and, you know, quietening the mind and being in a, because can you be in flow when you're in a sensory deprivation tank, or when you've, you know, found peace and you can't hear or see or think, or even you've drowned out all the thoughts and you are just kind of pure consciousness?
See, I would imagine they're different things, because, you know, when I would have heard a flow state described, it would be where, you know, a process is happening where, you know, like, say some people would go into a flow state and write a song, some people would go into a flow state and maybe write a movie, or and this is my understanding of flow states. I wouldn't be completely up to date on what, you know, a flow state is.
Well, you haven't tread on any of my thoughts of what a flow state is so far anyway, so by all means go on. Like.
Yeah, well, I thought what a flow state would be something like that, like when you are producing something. Like, when I said I wrote the blog or whatever, it felt to me like something was flowing through me, like I was just writing what was coming through me or whatever, like, you know. But I think the meditative state is a complete shutting down of the mind. There's no thoughts coming out. There's no you're not producing or doing anything. You're going into silence in the mind, you know, which is probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your life, like, you know.
On silence in your mind, that brings us into the idea of free will. Have you gone down the free will rabbit hole at all, or?
Yeah, I've heard little bits of Sam Harris talk about how we don't have free will and different things like that, like, or it's his belief. But I've never got into it enough. I've never been interested enough to listen to it in depth, I suppose. Like, you know, like, I believe we free will, you know, so it's not something, maybe I should, maybe it is something that I should maybe do a little bit more looking into, or whatever.
It's certainly something you should look into, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely believe that we're highly influenced by, you know, our sensory inputs, like, you know, the books we read or the films we watch, or, you know, name whatever it is, like, you know, I definitely believe that we can become influenced by them things, like, you know, but I still believe that, you know, I made the choice to go out to the jungle and drink ayahuasca. Like, I don't think that, you know, that was not an act of free will, like, you know. But I could be wrong. I don't maybe know enough about it.
It gets super, super interesting, and I don't really. I'm not educated enough to have an opinion one way or the other.
I think that's I wouldn't be either.
I'd highly recommend Sam Harris's book, Waking Up on It.
Right.
Couldn't recommend, and to everyone listening, could not recommend it highly enough. He has an audiobook as well, which he narrates himself, which I've listened to fucking 20 times.
Right, yeah.
I haven't listened to it recently, actually. I wish I had now, given that this has come up, because I might go into a bit more detail. But one of the arguments against free will, or not against free will, but one of the things that makes it such an interesting conversation is, like, you're who you are now, and you know, you make your decisions, and you think you have free will, but then on the way home you're in a car crash and you get a bang in the back of the head, and you essentially come out of the hospital, you know, a different person.
Yeah.
Like, your personality is completely changed.
Yeah.
And now he goes into this in far more detail, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's the gist of it.
Right.
With, you know, or maybe a tumour. You might get, you know, a blood clot or a tumour, or there might be pressure in a certain part of your brain. And, you know, all of a sudden you think this meditation business is a load of bollocks, and you just turn your back on your entire life and you're a completely different person. Like, this just happens all the fucking time.
Yeah. Sam Harris is a big meditator.
Massive.
Yeah,
he taught the Bhagavad Gita that you mentioned earlier, and mindfulness, and he's all about that. It's waking up. Again, it's the giveaway is almost in the name. It's this idea of kind of getting out of the.
But Sam Harris is, as far as I know, is atheist, isn't he? Like, you know.
Yeah, he would be. But again, like, he would have been one of the, what's known as the kind of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or the anti-apocalypse. So there was himself, Dan Dennett, Richard Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
But out of the four of those guys, Sam Harris would always have spoken about, you know, spirituality, and the other guys had all kind of rolled their eyes. New age fucking young lad over here is going on about fucking spirituality again, like. So he will be very, very spiritual, and talks openly about his experience with psychedelics. More MDMA.
I think LSD as well. I think
MDMA and LSD definitely. I don't ever remember him having taken DMT.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Or done an ayahuasca ceremony, and I don't know why not. Actually.
Yeah,
because that would fit that puzzle perfectly.
Because the last time I heard him speaking about LSD, he had spoken about how he'd had an awful lot of experiences on LSD, and then on his very last LSD experience, he like took a boat out into the middle of a lake and dosed himself on a high dose of LSD, and
in some dodgy country too,
had a freak out on it, like, you know. And again, I believe that the LSD experience, which, you know, again, as we've said, it's synthesized mescaline, like it's a man produced copy, like, you know. I believe that the mushrooms which are natural, like they're grown from nature, like, you know, and I believe that they're alive when you take, well, as you found out yourself, like, when you take the mushroom, when you take the ayahuasca, it's alive. Like, it's not like an LSD experience, which seems, to me, it's always felt chemically. Anytime I've done LSD, and I've had amazing experiences on LSD, I think that LSD is very good for introspection on your life, like, you know, and I think that's why psychologists were having, you know, like Stanislav Grof and what's his name? Oh, I can't think of it. But these psychologists, Carl Jung and people like that, they were having amazing, you know, beneficial experiences with LSD. But to me, it's not quite the same as taking one of the plant medicines, which feel alive. Like, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, the LSD works psychologically, like, you know, but it doesn't seem to give you the direct experience with God. Like, you know, it doesn't seem to give you that, you know, experience that it's alive. The visuals don't feel alive within it, like, you know.
Yeah, no,
and I think that's the difference between the two.
I would find a comparison there between cannabis, say, and alcohol. I find alcohol to be, I don't know, just there's something very man-made about it in comparison
it's chemically,
to
it feels
it is,
chemically,
yeah,
doesn't it?
it
Like,
is,
yeah, big time, yeah.
and with I've never taken DMT. Maybe you'll be able to enlighten me on this a little, but DMT can be distilled in a lab, but we produce it in our brains anyway.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, would you have found DMT, the DMT experiences that you've had, and I don't mean the ayahuasca experiences, I mean the smoking of
DMT.
Yeah. Did you find that as kind of chemical or
you see, the thing
man-made?
is it's not that it's man-made. You're still, like, with the DMT experience, what you're taking is you're taking the bark of the mimosa tree, and there's plenty of different trees kind of, and different kind of living organisms that you can do this with, like some grasses. There's, you know, barks of different
there's
trees,
thousands of
stuff like
grasses
that.
that you can get DMT from.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, when you make DMT, you make it from, if you take the mimosa bark, you break down the particles within the bark of the mimosa. So you put it through a process, but you're still using something that's natural. You know, where the LSD is made by combining different chemicals together. There's nothing.
But the
nothing
DMT that
nature.
you've smoked, presumably, unfortunately, it was probably bought from a drug dealer, say.
Yeah.
So, like, that stuff's been cooked up in a lab, surely. That's not coming from the bark of any tree.
Oh no, it is. Yeah, no.
Oh, really? Have they not
that's how you
synthesized
make.
it?
No, it's not synthesized. That's the difference. That's why, you know, with DMT, it's a process you put it through. You get the mimosa, which is the bark, and you put it in, I think it's nearly with a lighter fluid, and as you put them in together, right, and the lighter fluid extracts the DMT from the bark of the tree.
Yeah, so it's thinner isopropyl alcohol or something like that.
Yeah, something
to
along.
separate
So so what it does is it separates it, and then you would use a syringe then to take out that top layer, which is containing the DMT and the lighter fluid, and you then put it on a plate, and as you put it on the plate, like any lighter fluid, whether it's, you know, white spirits or petrol or anything that's based like that, over time it evaporates, doesn't it? Like, you know, and what you're left with then is the DMT on the plate, like, so you're left with. So you've taken that from the bark, and that's what you're left with. You're only using the chemical to extract the DMT, and then the chemical is evaporated off, and you're left with the DMT crystals on a plate.
But surely it can be synthesized, if that's even the right term.
It probably
I think it can.
But any of the DMT I would have used would have been done from the bark of the mimosa tree in Australia. Like.
Okay.
Yeah. Like there's two different types of DMT as well. There's 5-MeO DMT, and then there's, oh geez, what's the name? N something, whatever the second one is. Maybe the second one is done through a chemical experience, but the only DMT experiences I would have had would have been from the extract of the bark. And, you know, the tribes over in the Amazon and that, like, they would have, instead of smoking DMT, they would have taken the bark, right, and they would have crushed it down into a powder form, and they literally got these long tubes, so the tubes would be that length, and they'd literally put
about 2 meters nearly.
Yeah, about 2 meters, and they'd put the end of the tube up your nose, right, and they'd literally get the DMT at the end of the tube, and it'd go up your nose, and they'd blow
like a
blowpipe, yeah, and they'd blow it, right, and it'd shoot up your nose, and that would be, and then all of a sudden you'd be straight into a DMT experience, like, you know.
And sorry, they're firing what? The distilled crystals up your nose, or
no? They've literally broken down the bark. They've broken down the bark.
Oh, so the actual physical bark,
I think
to
so.
like a dust almost. So
yeah, to a dust.
It's almost, it's almost like snorting it, but in an extreme way. Like they're pushing it up the nose, like, and they found things dating back thousands of years, like, you know. They found the tubes for kind of blowing it up your nose, like, they found that dating back thousands of years, like, right,
so that's how long they've been using these for, like, you know.
Yeah. That's the bottom of another fucking rabbit hole.
I know, yeah, of course.
Day 4. You wake up day 4, presumably feeling kind of semi-euphoric, you know, having had the experience the night before, or or are
again,
you up all night, or what way does this work?
Again, I was, you know, as I said, like I wasn't sleeping much out there. Like, you know, I'd kind of, everyone else would be asleep, and everyone would be waking up maybe around 7 or 8 in the morning, and sure, I'd only be the medicine would only be wearing off me as it started to get bright, like, you know. So I'd then be up. There'd be a flower bath then later in the day, which would be kind of cleaning the energies, and then maybe in the evening time, you know, we'd all have dinner together, and you know, Rack would be kind of giving just different kind of talks, just, you know, on consciousness and different experiences and all of that kind of stuff, like. And usually around, again, 7 or 8 o'clock that night, like, that would be the time I'd sleep. Like, I was always up nearly from 6 o'clock one morning right through till maybe 7 o'clock the following evening, and then I'd fall asleep around 7 or 8, and I'd be back up at 7 the next morning, or it could even be later, and then I'd be back up at 7 the next morning, preparing myself to drink ayahuasca again. Like,
and to remind people that have forgotten, and to tell people who haven't caught the first one, you were doing a ceremony one day, and then not the next day, and then another ceremony. So you had that next day to basically, you know, go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock that evening. It's not as if everyone else is on their next ayahuasca ceremony.
I would have.
So you get your night's sleep.
Yeah, your night's sleep, and then the next day would have been, you know, up, breakfast, preparing yourself for the flower baths, and, you know, a bit of a, you know, just chilling out for the day, really, like, you know. Or we, you know, as I said, we would have been doing the steam room kind of thing, you know, and as, you know, not a room really, it's kind of just made out of, you know, the leaves off trees, really, like, you know,
hut
kind of thing, like, you know.
So you have a chilled out day. How were you, like, throughout the day? Again, were you, you know, walking 10 feet off the ground, or like, did you feel enlightened, or what?
Yeah, you felt, it was just incredible. Like, the feeling I was having was incredible. And then there was, of course, you know, is all of this real kind of thing at times, you know. That's how you're feeling. But yeah, when everyone's there, and, you know, there's a lot of talking going on every day as well. The next day after ceremony, there would be, everyone would go up to the Maloka, and we'd all share our experiences. So everyone would be sitting around in a circle, and we'd kind of share our experiences. And, you know, Rack was there, and, you know, Rack is an amazing person to do this with, like, you know, because Rack was kind of shown, you know, would have a very good understanding of the medicine. Rack, in a way, is a shaman himself, really, like, you know.
And this is the guy that you would have liaised with in the first place before you came over. Okay.
Yeah, so Rack is the facilitator who organises the groups to go out there, like, you know, and through his experiences out there with the medicine and all of that kind of stuff, like, he is amazing wisdom on all of these things, like, and he would be helping people to kind of, you know, there's so much going on. It's a lot to try and process, like, you know. And Rack was absolutely incredible at helping people to process what was going on during their experience, and, you know, and what their experience that they were having, like, you know.
Yeah. So that was a chilled out enough day for you. Day 4.
Yeah, day 4. So
you get a bit of kip then that night. And then day 5, you're up.
You're up, yeah.
And more baths, more
of the you know, the use of the mapacho, and then there was different ceremonies with a mud bath, and as the mud dries on you, you know, you can't take the mud off till it cracks, right? It cracks off you, like, you know, and that's a kind of a I suppose, you know, a metaphor for, you know, a rebirth. So you're being reborn out there in the jungle, like, you know, almost it's like healing you, and it's rebirthing you out there, like, you know,
almost like an insect sheds its exoskeleton.
Exactly, it's previous. You're shedding your previous life and your previous baggage, like,
a baptism of sorts.
Yeah, exactly that, like, you know.
And okay, so you have your mud bath then on day.
So this is ceremony 4, ceremony 4, which is probably on day 8, I guess you're saying.
Of your 11 days.
Of the 11 days, like, you know.
So the same thing then again, 7 or 8 o'clock as it gets dark, you all get gathered to...
Back up to the Maloka.
Yeah, you all have your mattress or your spot on the floor.
Yeah.
More ayahuasca.
Yeah, so, you know, with day 4, I kind of decided that, you know, as I said, in day 3, it turned out that, you know, I was out there to heal for somebody else. So I kind of thought to myself, you know, why not try and maybe heal for somebody else that I know? And there's somebody else in my life that, you know, has suffered from depression from a very young age, depression and anxiety, you know. So I kind of thought, you know, why don't I keep that person in my intention, like, you know. So that's exactly what I done. So I went up and I was drinking my ayahuasca, and drank the ayahuasca, kept that person in my intention or whatever, and kind of back then to my mat or whatever. And I suppose as the ceremony begins to take place, I got very quickly kind of told to it's time to go out and purge, like, so it was, that feeling again or whatever. So I went out to the toilet again, and I was literally, it was all coming through me again, like, this massive monster purging, like, and I was trying to keep that, I was keeping that person in my intention and asking for healing for that person, and all of them things. So I kind of came out to the toilet, and myself and John Healy seemed to spend an awful lot of time out on the kind of, I suppose, a porch. It's where the toilets are. So you have the Maloka, which is the circular building, and you come out through this wooden walkway, and either side then you've got toilets and stuff like that, like, so John will be out there because I can't talk enough about John Healy and what he done for me out there, like, without him out there, I certainly couldn't have dealt with the experiences I was having out there. He was, he is a friend for life, as I would always say to him, that we've been friends in many lives before, and we'll be friends in many lives again. Like, without him, I couldn't have dealt with out there what I was dealing with. He was always there to put an arm around me when things got tough, and to help me through them situations, like, and we'd always end up out there, and we'd be sharing our experiences and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember on the fourth night, we were out there, and we were talking, and we could hear Matilda inside, and she's singing these healing echoes or whatever, and all of a sudden I got, my eyes shut, like, I couldn't keep my eyes open, like, and again, I got absolutely transported again. I keep saying that it's through these dimensions, but that's what you seem to travel through or whatever, like, it seems like you leave the body and you travel through these dimensions. And it came again to this light, and it was absolutely blinding once again, like, and I'm standing on this balcony, and I'm rattling, like, I'm holding on for dear life, like, and it's even more intense than the night before when I was sitting on the steps, like, and again I can only describe it as pure love, pure understanding, pure forgiveness, pure, it was all of them things that so many of the prophets and so many of them people speak about. Like, at the base of all of them things, it's always love. It's always unconditional love. That's what Jesus' message was. That's what Buddha's message was. That's what Bob Marley's message was. It's God is unconditional love. The only person that judges you at the end of your life is you. God is not there to judge you. God is not there. Why would God judge himself? And I say him. Why? Because he's not either. But why would God judge itself for an experience it's having in a game? And that's, I think, where Christianity kind of, that's, why I lost, as a kid, I would have been brought up in church and stuff like that, like, and I could never understand this idea of sin. I could never understand this idea, that a God wants to judge and punish you, like, it's not like we came here and we were given a map of how to live this life, like, So I don't believe in sin. I don't believe that there's a God up there judging you, or he's look with a list of things of that you've done in your life or that. Like, I don't believe, like, God is unconditional love.
But you don't believe in a God outside of yourself anyway, do you? Do you know the kind of way that God is kind of internal? So the idea that there's a God out there judging you for good or bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, again, and I would go back to, and this is where I would say that the Hinduism and that are maps of consciousness and stuff like that. Like, they would believe in a heaven and a hell, but the heaven and hell is only part of Maya. It's only part of the illusion, like, everything has to have its opposite. So there is a heaven and there is a hell, like, and but outside of all of that is God, and God is it all.
Yes, sorry.
So
yes.
he is it all, and I keep saying he, like, and that's probably goes back to just conditioning of the mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe God is he or she. In fact, it's probably both at the same time. It's everything. It's he and she is what God is. It's pure consciousness, like, So I suppose what were we saying? I suppose.
Sorry, you had said that. What was it about Christianity and how you don't think that?
Oh, sin.
sin, exactly.
Sin
Yes.
and things like that. Like I don't believe in sin. I believe that life is all just a series of lessons. That life is just lessons. You're here to grow and evolve your soul. That's what you're here to do, like, you know. So
Yeah.
I suppose you asked me, do I believe in a God outside of yourself? But, you know, I believe the soul, and the best analogy I've ever heard it described of is that your soul is the exact same as a wave in an ocean. So on appearance, the wave is an entity within itself, isn't it? Like, we call it a wave, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still the ocean, isn't it? Like, you know, and your wave, you are like a wave. Your soul is like a wave that comes up, it experiences, and then it literally crashes back into the ocean of God.
Yeah, so the wave in that analogy is
The soul.
is a life.
Yeah, well, it's many lives. It's the soul that, you know, incarnates in many lives to learn the lessons that it needs to learn, to evolve, to return back into the ocean.
Yes.
So when I say a God outside myself, there's a God outside my soul in a way, but my soul will eventually return back into that God.
It's all the one thing.
It's all the one thing, like, essentially, yeah. So, you know, I suppose I was saying that that's what my vision was showing me. I was seeing what I can only describe as just pure consciousness, pure love and understanding and forgiveness and all of them things, like. And I'm standing there and I'm actually rattling. I thought I was about to implode. I thought, this is it now. I'm not coming back out of this. Like, you know, I'm gone. Like,
in too deep.
Yeah, the soul is about to merge back into God, like, and isn't coming back. Like, you know. And I was begging it. I was saying, look, please, I'm not ready to go. It was kind of what I was saying. Like, I was there going, I'm not ready to go. Like, this is too much, like, you know. And literally just like that, it was as if something was listening, and it just began to ease away, and the visions began to slow down, I guess is the word. They became, the intensity, you know, very quickly kind of came out of them or whatever. And when I opened my eyes, Rack was standing there actually holding me up, and I didn't know, like, you know, when this all began, I was standing with my hands on the balcony,
in
like,
full
you know,
control, like,
in full control of everything, and all of a sudden it went to there, like. And I opened my eyes, and Rack was standing there, and Rack looked at me and said, I'm after been sitting in that Maloka, and he says, I don't know what or who told me, but something told me I needed to come out here and catch you.
Catch you, as in you would have fucking
I
fallen
was
into your
gone.
death.
I thought I was gone. I thought, like, I was at the point where I actually thought my body was collapsing, but I wasn't moving. I was still standing, like, you know. But what I didn't realise till I came out, that I probably had collapsed, and Rack had caught me, like, you know. That the only thing that was holding me up was Rack. The only thing that was holding my body up was Rack. And he said to me, he says, I don't know what or who told me, but something inside in that Maloka told me that I needed to come out and catch you.
And so what? He came out of the Maloka, and he's under the influence as well.
Yeah, he's under the influence of ayahuasca.
He comes
as well.
out. He sees you standing.
Yeah.
Are you on a ledge?
I'm just standing on like a wooden walkway.
Okay.
A wooden walkway that's that's housed either side with just, you know, wooden barriers, like, you know.
And as he approached you, you collapsed essentially, and he caught you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Yeah, all I know is that I opened my eyes and he was holding me up, and Healy was the other side of me, and I just was like, and he just looked at me and he says, I don't know what or who told me, but something told me to come out and catch you.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And then, so the tree, you're presumably still kind of heavily under the influence at this stage.
Heavily under the influence of ayahuasca.
So back to the Maloka.
Well, we were out there kind of just, you know, talking more, and just, you know, I was telling him about the experience I was having, like, and he was saying that's pure consciousness. Like, he says, what you're experiencing there is, you know, for want of a better word, God. Like, that's what, you know, what that is. It's the creator of the universe, like, you know, it's the creative energy of the universe, was what I experienced, is what he told me, what he would have reckoned it was, like, you know.
And do you think that you, like, I think I know you do, but do you think that state can be achieved through meditation, say, or?
I think that's the end state of meditation.
That's the goal.
That's the goal of meditation, and I think that's the same goal that Buddha talked about. Like, the Buddha talked about, you know, nirvana. I think that's the state of nirvana that the Buddha talked about. I think it's that complete oneness with the universe and a complete understanding that, you know, consciousness is at its very essence is unconditional love, and it's unconditional bliss. And I think that's where we all return to. And I think what you're doing when you're meditating and when you're using all of these tools is that you're practicing for that final merging back into the oneness of the universe, like, you know.
Yeah. So that's like how quick into the, or how long into the ceremony is this? So you're...
This was again, like, time seems so hard, but I'd been out there, and as I said, I was kind of, you know, I was holding in my intention that person who, you know, I said I'd suffered from depression and anxiety and all of that, like, you know. So I was out there doing an awful lot of purging. That seemed to go on for maybe an hour or two, and then, you know, different people, like when me and John were out there, you know, one of the reasons I guess that we seemed to go out there was because when people are coming out to purge in the toilet, they're going through horrendous times, like, you know, and me and John would be out there and we would be really there for them, like, you know. Usually John has the safest pair of arms in the world, like, John's like a big bear, like, you know. And these women who, you know, I said are like my own mam's age, and people, they'd never even drank in their life, and they've come out and they're having these experiences, and they'd come out of the Maloka and they'd fall into John's arms, and he'd be holding them up. They'd be absolutely crying their heart out, and I would be talking to them about their experience, like, you know. And I would be talking, and John would be holding them, and we were out there, I guess, helping people is the only way I could describe it, like, you know. And how they have described it to me, I suppose, is what we were doing out there, like, you know.
Is that too much too soon for people generally, do you think? For someone who's never, you know, drank or never been under the influence of anything, to go from, you know, sobriety their whole life to that level of intensity? Like,
no, I don't think so, because I think all them people that came out of there afterwards said that was absolutely transformed their life, like, and changed their life for the better, like, by, you know, they went out there, you know, believing in something they'd never believed in before, like, you know, and they'd found amazing healing out there. They say the medicine will only ever give you the experience that you can handle. You know, that's what they say with ayahuasca. Like, ayahuasca will only ever give you the experience you can handle. And that's not to say that people don't go very deep within their experiences. And what might seem at the time like you're not able to handle, again, as I said, when you know, as the processing happens over, you know, weeks and months afterwards, you begin to find that that's where the biggest lessons you learned, and that's where the most benefit came from. Although it was hard and very challenging at times, that's where you grew the most.
Yeah, you had to kind of face your demons.
Face your demons, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think
exactly
that's what I kind of spoke about at the outset. I was facing my demons 2 months before we, you know, jumped in the plane.
Yeah.
But I suppose the reason I asked is it too much of a leap? Is because, like, you wouldn't bring, and I know alcohol is probably a bad analogy to use, but like, I suppose what I was thinking was, if you wanted somebody to experience alcohol, you wouldn't give them a bottle of Jameson or something.
Yeah,
of course.
Way. Yeah.
But of course, they're obviously two very, very different things.
Yeah.
But here's one for you. I can think of a number of people who I think that, let's say, cannabis might be very beneficial for, and ayahuasca, and maybe even just smoking DMT. But let's say if there's 5 people that I think I would love them to do it, or need it more than most, say. They're the 5 people that will be the last people I'd recommend it to, because the reason I think that they need it more than anyone is because they're, you know, their life is in disarray, or their grip on reality isn't what it should be or could be, or you would like it to be. So on one hand, they're definitely the people that should go out and do it immediately. But on the other hand, I'm sure as fuck not going to be the person that advises them to, or to bring them to.
Yeah, but again, you know, as I said in the last podcast, this plant calls you out there. That's what the shamans will tell you. You get a calling to go out there to that jungle. You get a calling to go out, buy the medicine, to go out there and to participate in these healing experiences. That's what the shamans will tell you. You know, they believe that, as I've said, that the plant has a spirit, and the spirit of that plant calls you out there for healing.
There's something about that I don't really get, I don't think, or that I'm skeptical of. I mean, how were you to have got that calling before the internet, say? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
how were you to?
if I hadn't have heard about it,
Well, pretty much, yeah.
I remember years ago that I seen a documentary on television about ayahuasca, and I remember talking then. I was only 17 or 18, and I remember thinking, me and Dermot, my best mate, were there. I was there going, I definitely like to do that kind of thing.
But jump back before television then. Don't go before internet.
Yeah,
go before do you know that kind of way?
yeah.
Before, like, how are you going to get a calling from anything with no exposure to it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I certainly understand what you're saying or whatever. But I think, you know, as ayahuasca becomes a lot more mainstream now, more and more people seem to be getting a call into it. Like, you know, like Dennis and Terence McKenna, you know, and Gordon Wasson, people like that, they all went out in the 50s and the 60s, and they ended up in, you know, Peru, or they ended up in Mexico, and they ended up in them places, and they would say that they got called out there, like, you know.
Yeah.
So for the plant to come back into our consciousness, somebody had to be the first to kind of, you know, bring it back out into the mainstream, didn't they? Like, you know, and they would say that they feel they got called to go out there, like, you know, and what they actually went out, you know, what they went out there looking for was, they'd heard of these plant medicines, and it wasn't maybe necessarily ayahuasca that they ended up, or that they thought they were going out there looking for. They went looking for other kind of plants, and this is what they came across, like, you know.
Yeah, they were searching for something.
And it happened to turn out to be ayahuasca.
Yeah. So let's say, like, I have someone in mind now. I obviously won't mention the name or that, but and I'll take it away from the person that I'm thinking of, because I'm going to use somebody that a lot of people listening, I'm sure, can associate with. Maybe it's the person that's listening themselves.
Yeah.
But if it's not the person listening themselves, it's somebody that everyone listening presumably knows has lost their way in life to the point that, let's say, they're depressed.
Yeah.
Just take your kind of standard depressed person, lost hope with life and all the rest of it. Like, would you recommend that they, you know, get in a plane, basically?
Yeah, you know, again, as I said to you, if they listen to this and they begin to get, you know, strong feelings towards that, then maybe that's, you know, that's their calling to go out there. Like, maybe they were meant to hear this podcast. Maybe they were meant to hear some of the podcasts, you know, on Joe Rogan, like I heard. You know, that's where I began. As I said, I'd seen that documentary first, and that was when I was 17 or 18, and then heard nothing of it till I began to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast again. And the more I began to hear about it, the more I began to research it, like, you know, and the more I began to look into what exactly it was. I'm always stressing, you need to do your homework on these things. Like, you know, psychedelics are not for everybody, and I'm certainly not saying that they're for everybody, but if you get that calling, if you begin to hear what we're talking about, or if you listen to other podcasts and you hear what them people are talking about, and it kind of resonates with you, and you begin to get that calling, well then, you know, why not? Like, you know, maybe you are getting that calling to go out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've struggled with the idea of whether or not antidepressant drugs are a good thing, say. And I've always kind of leaned towards them, you know, not being ideal, to put it mildly. But I heard, again, and I'm conscious of over repeating the man's name, but I've heard Peterson say on antidepressants, if somebody's suicidal, take all the antidepressants in the fucking world.
Oh yeah.
And take them immediately.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's fucking suicide or antidepressants, that should be a fucking easy choice. Like,
absolutely.
So,
but what you know is, you know, as the science is coming out now from, you know, the John Hopkins Society and the work that MAPS is doing, and the Cillian Institute and different places like that, like as the evidence is coming out to support the fact that these are having amazing effects with people with depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, addictions, all of these kind of things. As we get more and more evidence and the good science is coming out, we're beginning to see that these are cures for these mental illnesses and mental diseases, like. And, you know, I always, you know, think back of, I remember reading a thing that he was the guitarist for Van Morrison. And one of the things I read, he was speaking about how he had suffered from depression all his life, and how he was using, you know, very, very strong antidepressants and things like that. But he went out and drank ayahuasca in the jungle, and you know, he had an experience out there that kind of, I think it was something along the lines of, he got shown the part of himself that was the depression, and he got shown how it had affected his life and why it had affected his life. And he was basically told that he had to make peace with that depression, because the depression was a part of him. So, you know, within the ceremony, he made peace with that thing. And he says he came out there and never took an antidepressant again. Never ever had depression again, like, you know.
Yeah, no, I've heard kind of similar stories, and I've never heard the story of, and like with the amount of people that have done these ceremonies at this stage, you'd imagine it'd be well documented if it kind of existed, but you never hear the story of the mother who says, you know, don't do this. My son did it, and he was never the same again, and not in a good way. Do you know that kind of way?
What the shamans, or you know, for, you know, the curanderos, what they would say is that, you know, if like, most certainly there are some people who've gone out there and had what's the word I'm looking for, where, you know, I guess where their mind goes, like, you know. But what they would say, and what, you know, I think what the science is now beginning to show, psychotic episodes, that's the word I'm looking for. So what the science is now beginning to show on that is that if what we're finding with these people that are having these psychotic episodes on psychedelics, that they would have been prone to psychotic episodes at different stages of their life. And what would have happened if they hadn't have taken the psychedelic, that massive meltdown might have happened 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line. But what the psychedelic kind of does then is it literally induces the psychotic episode that would have eventually happened anyway, but brings it on quicker.
And is this like an irreversible psychotic episode?
No, I don't think so.
Or it's just a bad experience, say?
Oh, well, it can last. It can last a long time. Like, it can.
When you say long time,
well, I suppose till you get the proper help for it, like, you know, till you get the proper help. And this is why, again, I stress that you need to be with an experienced curandero. You need to be with somebody that's from a good lineage, that knows and has worked with these plants over, you know, numbers of years. Like Percy, my curandero, he has been using ayahuasca. He began to be taught in the use with the plant medicines from 14 years of age, and he's 40 now, and he comes from a lineage of master shamans. His grandfather was a master shaman who taught him how to become that shaman, like, you know.
Yeah, but so, again, getting back to where I kind of started with this, I think that people with psychedelics in general, say, I think that if you've got a good firm grasp on your mental health, say, and you're in control, and you're, you know, maybe you've, especially if you've been in dark places before and you've come through that, and you're the stronger for it, let's say, that I have. I would recommend people with that kind of mental fortitude, say, should absolutely experiment with psychedelics in the right setting and do your research and all the rest of it.
Like, again, you know, as I said last time,
low doses, absolutely.
Low dosage, like the difference between a medicine and a poison is dosage.
Absolutely.
So that's why you go to somebody who knows and has had these experiences before, who knows the right amount to take, who knows, you know, what a mild dose and a strong dose is, and the difference between the two. Like, you know, again, I really want to stress that these things need to be used in a very mature way. Like, it's not just go in there and throw handfuls of mushrooms into you. Like, you know, you
throw caution
to
the wind.
Exactly, you need to be with somebody who has experience in these plants.
But again, I suppose the point that I'm labouring to make is the people that I would say, like, there's a friend of mine, call him Paul, and Paul will be similar to myself. He's struggled with his mental health in the past, but he's come through it. He's the stronger for it, and he's, you know, he really has a good handle on things, and you know, Paul's a really together person, and you know, he's in a stable relationship, has been for a long time, you know, runs his own business, and you know, has a lot of, you know, of positives, and has his house in order, say. I'd say, here, Paul, you want to fucking go down the psychedelics route immediately, because there's really good lessons to be learned. But I'd say that to this hypothetical Paul person in a heartbeat. But he probably needs he doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
But there are people out there that I see who fucking desperately need it.
Yeah.
But they're exactly the type of people I wouldn't recommend do it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much fucking turmoil in their life.
Yeah.
So do you see the kind of the dichotomy that's there?
Yeah,
the people who I really
yeah.
think should fucking go and do it
Yeah.
are nearly the last people I would recommend do go and do it.
Yeah. I speak about, you get a call into these things, like, and I think, that is the thing with psychedelics. And I think when somebody has maybe a very bad experience on a psychedelic, it might be a built-in fail-safe in the psychedelic that kind of pushes you away, that says, if you're not ready for this experience, then you mightn't have the most enjoyable experience on it if you haven't done the prior work to it, like, if you haven't done the research, if you haven't looked at what you're getting into, like, I think maybe there is that kind of thing in it. But again, I can only speak from my own experience, and I can only speak from what the science that is coming out on it now, and is saying that it's not having, like, back in the 60s we were told these are things that can send you mad and all of that kind of stuff, like, but the science is now beginning to find that what it's working on is the neural pathways and the neurotransmitters in your brain, and it's actually repairing these kind of transmissions, so I believe done in the right set and the right setting with an experienced person, these can bring out very positive experiences for people, like,
Oh no, and again, I'd agree with you. I've had them with you.
Yeah.
And I'm sold on the whole use of psychedelics to treat, PTSD and depression and all sorts, even addiction, like from everything from nicotine to alcohol to heroin and everything above and below it. But again, there's an aversion for me to recommend them to people who don't have that kind of same stability in their life. And the ironic thing is that they're probably the people who fucking most desperately need it. You know, like, in a way, it's a it's a
but
weird
I think
one.
again, as I said, I think you'll find your way to it if it's meant for you. I think if this is the path that's meant for you, you'll find your way towards it, like,
Yeah, and there's almost getting back to what we were mentioning briefly earlier, this idea of instinct, this idea that you innately will know whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah.
And if you put enough kind of thought into it, you will come to the right decision. Your past life experience, for want of a better term, will kind of guide you in the right direction.
And the psychedelics, it's not that easy. Like, could you name me 3 people that could get you psychedelics? Like, could you name me 3 people that could get you, mushrooms or ayahuasca? Like, there's an awful lot of planning, and if it's something you're only half-heartedly getting into, if you're thinking about going over to Peru, as soon as you start looking it up and you realise that there's flights and there's accommodation and then there's, paying for your ceremony, if you're only kind of half-heartedly thinking of it, you'll probably very quickly maybe I'll just do something else, wouldn't you? Like,
Yeah, no, that's very true.
They're not easy. It's not like you can just go downtown, buy mushrooms and come back up and just try and have that experience. It takes there's a certain amount of effort to find somebody who's, able to have that shamanic experience with you, or that,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think if you find yourself in, let's say, if you're of the mindset that you would like to do this, and then you get the opportunity to do it, someone at a party goes, do you want to fucking share a bag of this? If you have looked into it, you should know that that's not the experience that you're looking for.
Exactly that.
Like, if it happens off the cuff, it's not. And again, if for no other reason, you miss the benefits of setting the date.
Exactly.
Which is where I would argue the majority of the benefit I got from our experience came from, was in the period from setting the date,
the lead up to
to the date happening.
Yeah.
But aside from the ayahuasca and the DMT and the LSD, we're not missing anything, are we? Like, is there other? What are the psychedelics? Like, there's cannabis in its edible form.
Ones, cannabis in its edible form. You've got you've got LSD, you've got peyote.
I'm sorry, what's peyote? What's
peyote
the active?
Peyote would be mescaline.
Mescaline, okay.
Yeah, and that's what, say, the Native Americans would have used. In Africa, you've got the Buishi tribe, and they would use iboga. Ibogaine is the synthesized version of it that they're now using with incredible results in treating addictions and things like that. Like,
okay.
So, you know,
And it's a
that
full
would've
blown
been-
psychedelic.
It's a full blown. The iboga is a full blown psychedelic. I'm not 100% sure if the ibogaine is
Okay.
a full blown psychedelic. Like, you know.
But it acts on the same neural pathways or whatever
Yeah,
else.
exactly,
And I think we
yeah.
spoke about this in the first podcast, the danger of distilling down natural substances to almost man-made substances, that you're missing the kind of
Yeah.
the
Well,
spirit of the
I
plant,
guess,
as you called it. Yeah,
exactly that. Like, you're missing out on the spirit, and the spirit is the most important part of the healing. Like, you know.
Yeah, and again, you kind of, you can probably see yourself how you would lose people with that kind of language.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you do lose me slightly.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah, no, for sure. But again, after having the experience, I understand how alive it is up there. Like, I understand, you know, how alive that experience is, and a spirit is the only word that we can use, really, isn't it, for an entity that lives outside of matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And other, you know, transcending other dimensions is another term that you've used and other people use. And what gives, I suppose, a certain amount of credibility to what you say and how you say it is that I've heard not the same story, but very similar stories. Everybody talks about how the language fails them and how you, especially when you're smoking DMT, that you get kind of blasted through different dimensions. And these aren't people that all went to the same schools. Do you know that kind of way? They're people from different decades, from different continents, different cultures. Exactly.
Exactly that, yeah.
But again, so we're on
Ceremony 4.
Ceremony 4.
Yeah, so I was, you know, again, you know, the night would usually finish then with a personal healing again, and I was kind of, after the intensity of the one the night before, I was nearly dreading this, you know, this personal healing or whatever. So they kind of came out and they got me or whatever, and again I was brought back into my mattress, you know.
I'm sorry, this is after you being after you collapsing and being caught by
now
Rack,
when I say collapsing, like, I never hit the ground or anything, like, you know.
But did you not hit the ground because Rack caught you?
No. Rack, like, when I just came to, Rack was just holding me, and he just said that he'd come out. Like, I never hit the ground, or I wasn't picked up off the ground or anything.
And you wouldn't have hit the ground had Rack not been there?
I probably didn't hit the ground because Rack was holding me up, like, you know.
Okay.
So, yeah, like, I didn't hit the ground because Rack was obviously just holding me, like, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the reason I didn't hit the ground. But so they brought me back in to do the personal healing, and so, you know, Matilda's over me again, and, you know, she's singing this Icaro, this personal healing over me or whatever. And at the very end of it, you know, she literally she leaned across me, and she kind of put or 2 fingers into a circle is what it felt like, and she put it on to the top of my head, and she literally leaned across me and she began to suck. So she just went, and I could literally feel this negative, like, this bad energy come right up through my spine, and it literally came out the top of my head, and she was just like, and it was like, and I just literally just folded down onto the mat. Like, it was absolutely, I don't know how to properly articulate this, like, but it was like this darkness travelled up my spine, and I would only say she sucked a demon out of the top of my head. That's exactly what the feeling was like, you know, and it was gone. That was it. I felt lighter. I felt very, very different after it, like, you know. So, no, I know, but that's, you know, again, as I said, I can only tell you this as truthfully as I can, like, you know.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, so, you know, when I came back from Peru, and the 2 people that I told you about in Ceremony 3 and Ceremony 4, that I told you that, you know, I was doing that healing for them, when they had no idea that I was over there in Peru. You know, they knew I was in Peru, but they didn't know I was going out there to drink ayahuasca, and they certainly didn't know what it was or what it was about, like, you know.
Yeah.
But when I began to tell them my story, they told me, so they said, okay, well, you know, what night was it that you were doing this for me? And, you know, I went through it, and I could give them the date or whatever. And the person on night 3 told me that the night that I was doing that ceremony for them, they had what they can only describe as what felt like acid or a boils in their stomach, like, you know, and they were actually trying to physically get sick and couldn't get sick. And the person that I was doing the healing for on the fourth night, told me that they were violently sick the night that I was doing that healing for them. And they had put that down, that they were after having a Chinese that evening or whatever, and they had put that down to that they were after getting food poisoning out of the Chinese. And not only did they tell me that, but their partner at the time told me that he was violently sick that night. And he one of them then kind of told me, and I don't want to say which was which, like, you know, but one of them then told me that the day after I was doing the ceremony for them, they were on their way to work and they were driving along in the car, and a song came on the radio that reminded them of me. And out of nowhere, for no unexplained reason, they literally broke down in floods of tears and had to pull the car over.
Right.
So, you know, I can't give you a reason for why any of that happened, but all the dates coincide, and that was the experience that they told me afterwards.
And what do you think that was all about?
Well, again, I believe everything is connected. I believe every single thing in the universe is connected, I suppose. And I believe that maybe they were just feeling the experience I was going through because I was putting my intention so much into it, like, you know. But I don't know. I can't give you I definitely couldn't give you an answer for them things. I can only tell you what they told me, like, you know.
Well, I'll try and come at this from a different angle, I suppose. I've been violently sick of an evening and put it down to, you know, that breakfast roll I had earlier on that day, or whatever. Do you know that kind of way? Like, I'm sure you have, or I'm sure you can. Yeah. You get where I'm coming from. Basically.
Yeah.
So would you put down times when that's happened to you, or any time that's happened to me, as possibly, say, somebody thinking about me while they were doing some sort of psychedelic experience somewhere else in the world?
No, definitely not. I'm just explaining that as in, you know, you can take from that what you want, like, you know, but to me it's an awful coincidence, like, you know, that it happened the same night that I was out there doing them things, and then the very next day one of them's in floods of tears in the car thinking of me, like, you know, for no reason.
No, absolutely. But again,
I'm not saying that is in relation to what I'm doing out there. I honestly can't, you know, I honestly can't say whether it is or it isn't. But I just think it's, you know, if it's not in any way connected, it's some coincidence, isn't it, that both people at the same time I was doing them experiences had, you know, that feeling in their stomach and were violently sick, like, you know. And you know, I'm very open to the fact that that was pure coincidence, and maybe they were just genuinely, maybe they did get a bad Chinese, and maybe the other person was just sick that night. I'm certainly very open to that. I'm not saying that it was connected. Like, I'm only telling you the experience, you know, and that's what they told me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, from my point of view, it would be very disingenuous of me to sit here and go, "No way, Ivor, that's mad."
No, of course,
like, wow, you touched them from the other side of the world.
Yeah, no.
Like, kind of way, I wouldn't bullshit you like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, as I said, I'm only explaining the experience that I've had. You know, and I'm only telling you that that's what they told me.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That wasn't the last ceremony, was it?
No, that was the fourth ceremony. That was the fourth ceremony, and then the fifth ceremony was literally the very next day. So there was no day off.
Okay.
So I hadn't slept, and we went into the fifth ceremony, and we drank the ayahuasca again, like, you know. The fifth ceremony was probably one of the most challenging out of them all, like, you know, because at that stage, you know, John Healy had gone back into Iquitos or whatever. He'd got everything he'd wanted out of the medicine, and he was missing his girlfriend and all them things, so he wanted to go back in and, you know, get talking to her and all of that, you know. And I was there on the fifth night, and it literally, you know, as soon as I drank the medicine again, there was a very dark undertone to it, like, you know. It definitely seemed very dark, and I was out and I was kind of purging, and it seemed like, you know, the devil was in my mind, and it seemed like the devil was attacking me with, you know, it was more or less trying to tell me that the whole experience I had wasn't real, like, you know, that my mind had made this up and it was all a trick of the mind and blah blah blah, and this was going on. This was, you know, it was nearly like a battle within my mind. So it was like, you know, and I was trying to think of all, you know, it went very dark, and I was trying to think of, I was, you know, holding on to reality by my fingertips, like, you know, kind of trying to think to myself, you know, have I gone mad, like, you know, or have I really experienced all these experiences over the weekend? I kept thinking to myself of all the positive things that were happening, and when things would get in their very darkest moment, you know, different people within the group would come out, and I'd be there, and I'd be, you know, going through this in my head, and they'd more or less be kind of saying to me, oh, you know, I just wanted to, you know, say, Ivor, that, you know, when I'd have done this certain thing that would have helped them, like, you know, they'd remind me of that, like, and they were saying, oh, you know, I can't thank you enough for, you know, helping me in that experience or whatever, like, you know, and they'd be out with me for a while, and I'd be feeling grand, and I'd be kind of in my head, I'd be going, right, you know, there's something nearly trying to attack you here, and, you know, when I read more about this afterwards, they would call it kind of the dark night of the soul, is what it, you know, is the best kind of way that I've read a description of this, like, you know, and it's where the dark, when you see the light, you know, the darkness kind of comes, you know, as a final act to try and, you know, to try and turn you, to try and make it seem like it's, you know, that it's not real or whatever, like, you know, and it seemed like that's what it was, like, it seemed like the darkness was attacking me, trying to say, no, you're going mad, this is all, everyone's going to think you're mad when you leave here, like, and you tell this story, like, you know. But as I said, you know, as the night was progressing, people were coming out, they were telling me the amazing experiences they were having because of things I had done with them and things that I had said to them, and, you know, different times I'd helped them out over the 10 days or whatever, like, you know. And by the end of it, you know, I was kind of, as it began to wear off, I was, you know, I was praying for the personal healing at this stage, like, you know. So eventually they came out and they brought me in or whatever, and I was down on my mat again, and on the final night, Percy done the final healing over us, like, you know. And, you know, I've all my life I've kind of suffered with, you know, I've never felt good enough, like, you know. I've always been very low with confidence, and, you know, all of them, you know, different kind of things like that, like, you know. And
poor self-esteem, so
very, very low self-esteem, like, you know. So that's what seemed to be attacking me when I was out there, all of them kind of things, like, you know. And when I was brought in, and, you know, Percy was over me, and he was doing the personal healing, and he was using the mapacho kind of to clear my energies and all of that kind of stuff. And again, at the very end of it all, you know, he leaned across me, and he literally, again, as I say, like, it felt like he sucked this energy from my body, like, he took this energy out of my body, and it was all them things. It was all my, you know, lack of self-worth, it was all my low confidence, you know, my bad self-esteem, and it seemed to leave my body, you know, when he sat across. And that's the only way I can describe it, like, that energy travelled up my spine, and he took that out of me, like, you know. And that's what the final personal healing seemed to be, like, you know.
And had you read about this beforehand?
No, I'd never read anything, not about this beforehand.
Yeah.
Because I guess everybody's experience is an individual experience, really, like, you know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I don't mean to kind of, I don't mean to seem like I'm trying to catch out in any kind of a way.
Oh,
not at all.
No, of course.
The reason that I ask is that if you had read that this is what's
Yeah,
going to happen,
yeah,
that
is
it
it
might
just
have been kind of
happening?
almost
Yeah.
implanted,
Yeah.
you know, in your head previous to it.
Yeah, no,
happening.
definitely not. And I was actually, because obviously coming back out here, when I knew I was coming back out here, I read my blog again, like, you know,
Yeah.
which I hadn't read in, you know, maybe, I suppose, over a year or longer even, like, you know. And what I began to realise from the blog was that, you know, that night where I said on the third night that I experienced what seemed like pure consciousness, and it kind of started to teach me the lessons that, you know, that we are all God experiencing life and stuff like that. That God is experiencing life and itself through you, like, you know. I began to realise that's exactly what the Hindu and the Buddhist texts are teaching, like, you know. And I was kind of saying, well, I had that experience before I ever read about it. I'm only really, it's only within the last year that I've began to kind of really gravitate towards them philosophies and things like that, and to really start to read them scriptures and to read them different holy books and stuff like that. So, it was only, that when I was reading the blog that I was thinking, well, I had that experience first, and then I began to read them in these books,
Yeah, and I suppose in a sense, if somebody was to ask you now, like, what benefit have you gotten from your trip to Peru?
Yeah.
A year later, getting into all these different religions could be included in that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's finding the wisdom in each of them religions and philosophies. That's what I'm. As I said before, I was somebody who would have beforehand said, "Oh, all religions are bullshit, and there's nothing to be learned from them." But the more and more I'm beginning to read about them at their very basic level, but look at them with an open mind and not say that this is the only religion and this is the only path. I would now have a belief that there's an infinite amount of paths to finding God, I believe that every soul is destined to return home to God, I don't think that, I don't believe in eternal hell. I don't believe that there's a hell that you go to and you're stuck there forever. I believe that,
or an eternal heaven.
Or an eternal heaven, exactly. So, because heaven and hell are only part of the illusion, they're only part of Maya, So I believe that, every soul, that's the nature of the game. The game is designed that eventually, and that's why there's suffering in the world. If there wasn't suffering in the world, why would any of us try and attain nirvana, or try and return to merge to God? So as you come here over a number of incarnations, that as we said, when you constantly rely on external pleasures, it tends to bring suffering into your life, and I think after a certain amount of incarnations here, you'll begin to look for something else. You'll begin to look internally within yourself, and I think that's what the plant medicines are. They're a healing for your soul, but they're also plant teachers, and they then move you in the direction towards, and that's why I say that, Hinduism and Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, what they all are is maps of consciousness, and they're maps to show you how to return to God, and there's maps to show you how to exit the illusion.
And when you say exit the illusion, I know this is kind of mixing a bit of sci-fi in here, but as an analogy, do you think The Matrix is a great movie to show you you've seen The Matrix, have you? Or
yeah, I've seen The Matrix.
Do you think that's good as an analogy, say, of how there is this world that we live in that we call kind of normality, say,
normality,
but
reality. We call this reality, don't we? Yeah.
So do you think that's a fair analogy to kind of along the same lines of what you're thinking of? There is this, in air quotes, reality, but there's so much more kind of going on in the background, say, or that there's
absolutely
a more real space.
There's when I guess when we were in Holland and stuff like that, I was kind of saying to you that, the visuals, what I believe the brain is, and I misrepresented this last time on the podcast. I said that the brain was a conductor of consciousness. What I believe is the brain is a receiver of consciousness, and what the brain is doing is it's distilling out. There's a billion things going on around us right now, and our brain is what's the word I'm looking for? Our brain is is shutting out everything that we need to see to survive. So there's a billion things happening, and our brain is filtering. Sorry, that's what it is. I believe the brain is a filter. So the brain is filtering out, the other billion things that are going on around us right now. And I believe what the psychedelic does is it releases that filter, and it shows you what's going on around us the whole time.
Right, that's interesting now, and here's one you may or may not have heard of it, but in our visual field, if you hold out your arm out in front of you and as if you're giving somebody the thumbs up, thereabouts this space that occupies the top of your thumb, let's say your nail, that's all the human brain can see and focus at any one time. So if you're listening to this, give the imaginary person in front of you a thumbs up and look at your nail, say, on the back of your thumb.
Yeah.
And that amount of space in your visual field is the only bit of your vision that you can actually see in, call it, in HD quality.
Yeah.
Everything else,
Yeah.
the brain just essentially invents that and gives you the appearance that you've seen it.
Yeah.
So just bearing that in mind, the idea that, and that's just with vision, that's nothing to say about the rest of your senses. So bearing that in mind, that kind of expands what you just said there. That it, you know, if it is a filter, it kind of widens the holes of the filter, if that makes sense, and lets more in. So.
Yeah, you're seeing more what's going on around, like, you know.
Yeah. So that was your final experience. Oh no, actually, before I forget to ask, because it's come to mind a couple of times. When did you go to Peru?
I went to Peru. Oh, it'll be 3 years in June, I think.
3 years in June?
3 years in June, yeah.
Okay. And how have your partner, because you're still with
Elaine,
you're still with Elaine since.
Yeah.
So, God love her.
Yeah, I know, yeah. She just ignores me at this stage, yeah.
But how well received is the wrong way to phrase it, but how have people generally, because like I wouldn't have known you before the first time you were on. So how have people that you've grown up with, people that you've been friends with all your life, you know, your parents, your you know, brothers, your, you know, cousins, and just people that you've worked with or whatever else. How do you think they viewed your transformation, or has there been much of a transformation, or like from the outside, like put it this way, is there someone that you might have, let's say, worked with on and off, or that you know that lives beside you, or as a cousin or whatever else, that would listen to these podcasts and be fucking shocked? What? This man? What the fuck? I didn't know anything about this.
Or
is it plain for the world to see this? You know, you're completely different.
No, I've never hid any of this. Like, you know, I openly speak about this. Like, you know, I've absolutely no problem talking about these things and all that. I've never hidden this from anybody. Like, you know, if people ask me and are genuinely interested, it's not, you know, this isn't what I'm going around talking about every day, all the time, like, do you know what I mean? But if somebody, you know, shows is genuinely interested, I love these conversations. I love exploring consciousness. I love speaking about consciousness. I love speaking about ideas. You know, I love all of them things, because it's only through conversations that I can, you know, the ideas that I have in my own mind, like, it's only when you put them out there and you chat them through with somebody that you can kind of see, well, maybe I'm wrong about that, or maybe I'm right about that, or do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's, like, I do love these conversations, but I'm not always having them, like, you
of
know,
course,
you know, I love,
more's the pity, probably.
But you know, I wouldn't, to be honest, I'd probably be bored of myself if I was going around every day and this was all I spoke about, like, you know.
Of course,
like,
but
I've a lot of other interests in life, you know.
But outside of you kind of talking about it, would people, is there something that would people notice the difference in you? If you never mentioned it,
like, even Elaine would definitely notice a big difference in me. Like, you know, as I said, you know, my life seems to be, I definitely, you know, I would definitely spend more time meditating. I would be back reading, like, an awful lot. Like, you know, I always was as a child. Like, I would have read an awful lot, but now, you know, I seem to be devouring books and that. Like, you know, I seem to be, you know, very hungry for that knowledge and stuff like that. Like, you know.
Yeah, you have a real appetite for it.
Yeah, I have a real appetite for it. Like, but, you know, I love the idea of exploring consciousness, and I love the idea of hearing other people's experiences. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always reading books. You know, I've probably given up on TV. I've given up on radio. I've given up on an awful lot of them kind of things. Like, you know,
poisons.
Yeah, I suppose they are. Yeah,
I would consider them absolute poisons.
Yeah,
I really
like,
would.
I wouldn't. Things like that don't interest me. But, you know, I still love my boxing. I still, you know, I probably wouldn't have as big an interest in football as I would have done, but I would still be interested enough in it, like, you know.
Yeah, no, of course, no, absolutely. So that was that your final experience, or that was
the final night of that was the fifth experience, was that night, like, you know.
And then, like, was it onto the bus, straight to the airport, home, or?
Yeah, we kind of, you know, we had a night there, kind of, you know, we slept, and more or less really that kind of got up. Everyone had breakfast together, kind of packed up our stuff, got the bus then into Iquitos or whatever, and hung out there I think for a night or two, and then kind of headed for home. Yeah.
And have you been in contact with Percy or other people from the group? Or
I have quite a lot now. Maybe I suppose as time goes on, probably not as much as I would have done at the start, but we'd always check in on each other and say hello and see how everybody's going and stuff like that, I suppose. But again, time comes between people, doesn't it, and that becomes less and less. But they're always in my thoughts, and I'm always thinking of them, and I'm always thinking of that experience out there.
And what's coming back to kind of normality like after such an experience and such a presumably you call it a transformative experience?
Yeah.
Like you come back not a completely different person, obviously, but with a different mindset, a different mentality, a different view on life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say we're quite lucky to have a lot of the books that I would be reading about how as I say, they're maps for consciousness, like and they've explained my experience to me in a way that has been able to help me deal with that, like
Yeah, of course, and make sense of it.
Make sense of it, exactly that. Yeah. So they've helped me to make sense of and to process that. Like these medicines, they say the processing goes on for 6 months to a year afterwards, and you're constantly feeling the benefits for 6 months to a year after. To that extent, like where you're constantly processing things and trying to figure your head out around these things. But some people will come home and they won't go and do the research, and they won't go and do these things, and 6 months later then they're like, oh, I need to go out and drink ayahuasca again, or I need to go out and do another ceremony again, like and instead of using it as what it is it's a tool which should be a part of your spiritual toolkit, like
And do you have any intention of going back out there anytime soon, or would you, if financially, if you could afford it, or if circumstances were different, would you have gone back already? Or
no, I definitely don't think I would have gone back already. I don't feel since then, because as I said, there's so much processing involved in it, I haven't felt the need to go back there, and I still don't feel the need at the minute to go back there. I had thought about maybe next year, if people were interested, maybe bringing a group of people out there, but it was just a thought I was having. It's not now set in stone or anything like it.
Yeah, no, of course.
But I had thought if other people were interested, the majority of times, well, actually the only real times I do psychedelics now is when I'm bringing people for their first experience, really, like I would never really do psychedelics for any other reason other than that, really, at the minute. Like I'm not searching for anything more within psychedelics. Like I'm not having to find. I'm now finding the things I need in in my meditation, in my books, in all of them kind of practices. Like so every time I'm doing a psychedelic now is usually with somebody who's doing it for their first time.
Okay, and I think I get that, because I can see how almost intoxicating is probably the wrong word, but how there's some sort of really sharing quality in it, and I get it, maybe to a smaller degree, maybe not, but I love introducing people to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I love it. And only last weekend, I gave, over the last 2 weekends, I've given a friend of mine his first taste of jiu-jitsu. So he's been watching, jiu-jitsu tournaments and the UFC for on and off for years, and has an interest in it. But he never felt like what it feels like to have somebody apply a rear naked choke to you.
Yeah.
And just the little nuances, like, I mean, when you get behind somebody and you try and submit them with a rear naked choke, people see that on the UFC and on YouTube or whatever, and they know the position, and they can probably show you how to do it, basically. But they don't know the little nuances of using the blade of your elbow to pull back someone's nose and make them lift their chin so you can get your arm in the first place. And one thing this guy said, and it's something that a couple of people have said to me, is they've been watching it for years, and this might make sense off the bat, but they've been watching the UFC for years, but it wasn't until they did it, even just a slight bit of rolling, that they realised how rough it was. And that might make sense to people, like, what do you mean how rough fucking mixed martial arts is? Of course it is, but until you experience it, I suppose. And like, you can, yourself, like, look, you can read all the books and watch all the YouTube videos you want in relation to psychedelics, but it's not until you take a couple of grams, ideally in the right setting, that you know what the fuck you're talking about at all. Like,
I know for sure.
So there's something cool about giving people their first taste for something.
Something new.
There's something like even like I've brought young people, friends of mine's kids, even off fishing for the first time.
Yeah, right.
And like it's great to see the glint in their eye when the
course.
float goes under the water and they look at you and they don't know what to do. You know, just giving people and I suppose setting them on their own little journey to a degree. There's something really cool about that.
Well, you know, as you said, like you see that glint in their eye when it's fishing, but imagine what that glint in their eye is when they begin to realise that there's something much bigger than all of this, like, you know, when they start to begin to have hope in something again, like, you know. And the majority of people who come to psychedelics are people who have, you know, struggled with things in their life, like, you know. So imagine that glint in their eye when you see a healing happening, when you see a deep realisation within them that they've, you know, that there's something bigger than us, and there's something bigger than all of this going on, like, you know.
Oh, look, as I said, like I've seen kids with, you know, the float goes down, and that to me is just an amazing experience. But that's so fucking trivial in comparison to what you're talking about. Where are we on the legality of it? Because we obviously had to go abroad to do it. So where are we in relation to? Like, is there any, because of all the work that's been done in the States, I suppose, we are inching closer, I suppose. Yeah,
inch by inch, I suppose. They do kind of say that, you know, cannabis is the kind of, you know, the cannabis is going to be as soon as that's passed fully legal, it opens the floodgates. Yeah. The reason that they're using cannabis is because it's probably the easiest out of all of the psychedelics to get through. But as soon as that goes through, it's going to open the floodgates. Like you know, as I said, like John Hopkins and MAPS and things like that, they would say that within the next 5 to 10 years that you know, these things are going to be legalized and they're going to be used for therapeutic benefits. Like, you know, they believe within 10 years, I guess, is the, you know, I suppose the general consensus on it, that within 10 years these will be fully legalised and used for healing purposes, like, you know. And
there's kind of is there two routes to legalisation, one being the kind of medical route and one being the religious route?
Yeah, well, they use, you know, obviously the likes of MAPS and all of that, because they're doing the science and stuff like that, and they, you know, these substances, you know, back in the 60s, they were all categorised as category 1 or level 1
Schedule 1, I think.
Schedule 1, sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, Schedule 1 substances, which meant that they had no medicinal benefits. So the proper science couldn't have been done on them, like, you know. But now what they're obviously with the studies that are coming out and the benefits that are being shown with them, it's now either has been or it's close to being put to Schedule 2. Which means that they can have, you know, further trials and
do research on
them, exactly that. So that's obviously one path that people are going down, and then there's the other path which the Santa Diam Church, I think, which uses ayahuasca, they've used in America. As far as I know, they say that it's their sacrament, you know, so that they, you know, they use the thing as a spiritual practice or whatever. So I'm nearly sure, and I could be very wrong on this now, but I think that the Santa Diam has opened its first centre in America where ayahuasca is now allowed to be used. And again, you know, don't quote me on that, I could be very wrong on that, like, you know.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. And I think progress has been made here in Ireland. That lady, her name escapes me now. She would have been in the news on and off for the last year. That she walked from Waterford to Dublin in protest of her daughter not being able to access cannabis as her name escapes me now. I went to see her speak outside the Dáil there last year. Yeah. But I think she's gotten, is it a prescription for cannabis-based products here in Ireland? So that's let's say a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's all very encouraging, isn't it? Like,
it is. No, I think so. And again, the more work that's done by the likes of MAPS, and there's another guy in the UK. Is it David Nutt? Is that his name? Or
God, I'm not too sure now.
Yeah, no, I can't think of his name now. Again, and there's another guy based here in Ireland, James Linden, who I've actually invited on the podcast. I'd love to get him on from Greenlight Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, you were telling me about him. Yeah, that'd be an interesting podcast for
sure. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. But I think the times we live in, the access to information is just so. It's centuries ahead of where it's ever been before, if that makes sense. And like these days you can just download whatever it is off your phone, and you don't even, in a sense, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but you don't need to read the book.
Yeah.
Or at least you can read a review of the book before you can read the book, if that makes sense.
You can read a book in bullet points now, you see, and get
and again, I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, as long as people are getting, as long as it's good information that people are getting, and people are getting the thing, again with, technology, like again, as I say, like I believe everything has duality in it, like everything has good and bad in it. If you are using technology as a tool for, bettering your life, then it's an amazing tool. But if you are somebody who's sitting there and you're scrolling through Facebook for hours and hours on end, or you're sending 500 Snapchats a day of you eating, sausages for your breakfast and stuff like that, then are you using it as a tool? Are you using it as a tool for you, or is it using you as a tool,
or making a tool of you?
Yeah. That's the big question now with technology and things like that. We're on a knife edge with it, really. I watched a very interesting interview with from memory, I think he was one of the founding directors of Facebook, and he was speaking about how they got psychologists in when they were designing it, and they were, when they were putting it onto the bigger platforms, they got psychologists in to design it so that they could more or less addict you to Facebook, more or less, like, so they began to understand that the like button was something, and people crave likes, and people craved people coming and hearing what they have to say, like, so he's kind of left Facebook, and he's starting to petition an awful lot of the governments, and he's saying that it's destroying the fabric of society, because he's saying that they knew this at the very start, but it was kind of ignored or whatever. It was the elephant in the room that was never spoken about, but that they knew they were designing a system that was going to addict people. And technology in that sense just becomes another drug or another distraction, doesn't it? Like, and is it a good? I don't think it's a good thing when it's like that,
No, absolutely, and I think it kind of dulls the senses to a degree, as does the kind of typical Western diet. It numbs us to everything around us.
Yeah, well, it's a distraction again. To go back to meditation, it's a distraction from the present moment. We're constantly looking for distractions, whether it's technology, whether it's drink, whether it's drugs, whether it's whatever. We all, so many people seem afraid to sit with their own thoughts and just sit and just, watch that. They seem to want to be distracted constantly, like, we're constantly looking for them distractions.
Yeah, look, and this has come up a number of times before again, but we, at least people of our generation, have grown up. Like when we were kids, we didn't have tablets and smartphones and all the rest of it. So we have had the luxury of being kind of stuck with ourselves. But kids growing up these days, like, and even myself these days, like, granted, every time I'm on my phone, typically I'm looking up something that I'm really interested in, and I have already an infinite amount of things earmarked to read in the future. So any kind of split second that I get, any split second I get to myself, I'm not spending it with myself. I'm spending it with all these different people that I'm reading, and there's a kind of a downside to that in a way. But on this, you mentioned it there again, and it's come up a couple of times, this idea of being in the present moment. I think I get the benefit of being in the present moment, and I think being in a flow state is an amplified version of kind of being in the present moment. But you still need to prepare for tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? And
sure.
Currently now I'm working me absolute socks off.
Like myself, for sure. Yeah.
And that's I'm preparing for the future there. The idea is that I do so much now that I don't have to do so much in the not too distant future, hopefully. So
again, I'm not saying that people, give up on life, like, you know, or that you just all of a sudden you go and you sit in a cave over in India and you fucking meditate for 40 years, like, that you walk away from your family and you walk away from all of that. Like, I'm certainly not saying that. Like, I'm in the process of building my own house for my own family, like, you know, so I fully get that. Like, you still have to be in the world and living within the world, but it's to maybe, you know, get rid of some of the distractions in life. You know, that's what would be good to kind of go towards, wouldn't it? Like, you know, to get rid of some of them distractions and to, you know, be at peace with yourself. Like, instead of looking for all the pleasure outside of yourself, begin to look at the pleasure inside yourself.
Yeah, and if you're if you're going to be distracted by something, or not distracted by something, but if you're going to spend your time doing something, make sure that it's aiding your future
improving
self,
and
improving yourself. So that's the perfect analogy that you mentioned there. You're building a house, and you're building a place to raise children and to spend, you know, maybe not the rest of your life, but a good fucking proportion of it. So you can be distracted and not be in the now. I suppose, is that the key? If you're not going to be in the now, be doing something that's going to benefit you, I suppose.
Yeah, being constructive.
Being constructive, you know, that's
exactly.
it. If you're not going to be in the now, be constructive.
Be constructive,
There's a fucking t-shirt in that.
That sounds a good one, yeah, maybe we'll make $1 billion off it.
But there definitely is, though, isn't it? Like, seriously, like, if you're not going to be in the now, be constructive. There's a lot to be said for that, because anything outside of that is, you know, watching the same program you've watched 10 times over, or flicking through Facebook, or
just distractions.
Distractions for the sake of distractions, which is never good, I don't think.
Yeah.
But getting back to our trip for, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Was there anything different about my experience with you, say, than others? Because I suppose I had taken mushrooms before, I'd had the experience. I'm no stranger to drug taking. And I think people in Ireland lose sight of how accustomed they are to taking drugs. Like, a lot of people would say, a lot of people listen to this might kind of shrug their shoulders and go, what's he fucking on about? Like, I've never taken drugs. And the same person gets bananas drunk every weekend.
No, but like, I always, you know, I find it humorous when people say to me, oh, I'd never take a drug, but at the same time they're drinking down a big fucking mocha latte with 20 cups or 20 spoons of sugar in it. Like, the two most used drugs on the planet are coffee and sugar.
Would you class sugar as a drug?
Yeah,
is
sure.
Is it
but
a drug?
it alters your state of consciousness. That's what a drug is. A drug is something that alters your state of consciousness.
Okay.
So sugar and coffee are altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, most certainly. I know myself. So, I need my sugar and coffee buzz first thing in the morning before I can fucking function.
So there's your drugs. Like, you know what? I think what people should rephrase that is I don't agree with people taking drugs, except the ones I take.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I find that with a lot of people. Like, you know, it's okay for them to drink alcohol, or it's okay for them, you know, to drink coffee, or, you know, caffeine or sugar or all of them things.
Nicotine,
like,
whatever it is.
Then they look down on you for smoking weed or using, you know, whatever. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, it's my belief that nobody should be able to tell you how or when you alter your state of consciousness. Like, nobody should be judging you on that. That should be your sovereign right to alter your consciousness in whatever way you see fit.
You've heard, I'm sure, the war on drugs being referred to as a war on consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and rightly so.
Graham Hancock spoke about that in his TED talk, which then got banned off TED.
Why was that banned, actually? Because
he spoke about psychedelics in it. He spoke about psychedelics. He spoke about how they were consciousness, and he spoke about, exactly as you said, he coined that phrase, like, that the war on drugs is a war on consciousness. It's, you know, Graham's belief is that you should have the right to experiment with your consciousness in whatever way you see fit. And he's right. Like, if you are a sovereign person, if you are in control of your own life, who is anybody else to judge you or tell you that you shouldn't alter your consciousness, you know, in the way you want to? Like, you know, I hear people say, like, you know, that, you know, oh, you know, taking ayahuasca or taking mushrooms and things like that, you know, it's not a natural way, like, you know. But the word natural comes from nature. It's the word natural means to be derived from nature. So if you're nature and the plants are nature, so why you know, then how come you can't have an experience with them, like, you know?
No, absolutely. And again, I find it hilarious when people say that things that aren't natural are in some way bad as well. The kind of the flip side of what you're saying. And the same person will hop on a plane and fly halfway across the world and not take issue with anything remotely like that. You know?
But again, if people have been suffering from depression or post-traumatic stress disorder and all of that kind of thing, should we not give them these medicines because they're not natural? In some people's eyes, they're not natural, but to me, what's more natural? If you have you ever heard of remember we spoke about Francis Crick on the last podcast?
That, not synthesized, discovered the DNA,
our DNA,
double helix,
the building blocks. Well, he has a hypothesis where he believes that planets are seeded with life. And it's called transpermia. Have you ever heard of it? No.
Is this that life comes from asteroids and different things? Comets,
exactly.
Especially, maybe?
Meteor, comets, and asteroids and stuff like that. That life is intelligently designed, and that life is intelligently designed, and that the life is sent out on, again, asteroids, comets, and meteors, and it's sent out through space, and they collide with planets, and they'll hit every planet, but only a certain amount of planets are able to host life on them, So that that's kind of his theory on it. And then there's also the other theory that mushroom spores. Mushroom spores are one of very few substances that can travel through space because they are unaffected by the radiation that's out in space, and these spores are literally traveling constantly through the universe. So if these spores are then coming in contact with planets that have been seeded with life from meteors and comets and asteroids, as we said, if the mushroom spores are then coming in contact with these planets, and then they're then being used by as Terence McKenna said in the stoned ape theory, they're then being used by
sapiens, or the equivalent of sapiens.
I suppose. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of monkeys or whatever. If they're being used by monkeys to expand consciousness, then that could mean that intelligent design has sent consciousness through the universe through these mushrooms,
Yeah, no, look, it's a fascinating theory, and again,
I just want to say I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying it's something very interesting to think about and something very interesting to talk about,
No, absolutely, and I think the idea that you can, go down these rabbit holes and independently of me, and I can go down my rabbit holes, and the two of us can come together and discuss them, and other people can listen in, and no doubt that there's people listening to us that will go on then to talk about how right we both are, how wrong we both are, how informed we are, how uninformed we are, and the tagline that accompanies the name of the podcast, Off the Lead, is provoking conversations. And that's what it's all about. It's getting people talking, and again, I've said it before. You often hear that we have a problem with talking about kind of mental health in this country. I think that's completely the wrong way of looking at it. I think we have a problem with talking, full stop.
No,
we really do,
and
I think we live in the golden age of both access to information and conversation, and whether it's about enlightenment or spirituality. Because again, only a couple of decades ago, the only people that were talking about kind of spirituality, etc., were it was the religions, and I suppose we're slowly but surely kind of taking all that back.
I think so. I think there's an explosion happening all across the world of people kind of turning to meditation and to yoga and to fasting and all of them things. That's happening at a very quick rate. More and more people are starting to turn to these traditions. And
and I'd throw martial arts in there, and sports generally, and reading, and all the holotropic breathing, and
big
just
time.
different things.
They're all tools.
The new thing. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the thing I was trying to, the point I guess I was trying to make with the transpermia and then with the mushroom spores going through the universe, I guess, was that if you were to intelligently design this whole thing, and you wanted to communicate with the species that was then to interact with the mushroom, or you wanted to interact with consciousness, what would be the best way to do it? You'd put it into something, what we're going to eat. You know, we as, you know, the stoned apes or whatever, you know, they would have found these mushrooms and eaten them. If you were God and you wanted to, you know, to expand consciousness and you wanted to be sure that it was going to happen, you'd put it in something that, you know, primates were going to eat, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you see, I don't know, you lose me again slightly when you mention God, and like in our first podcast, you said something along the lines of God playing hide and go seek with himself.
Yeah, that's the Hindu thought.
But that to me implies that God has a consciousness that's separate to everything else.
God has a consciousness separate to the illusion. So God itself is pure consciousness.
But everything is pure consciousness.
Pure
I am.
consciousness,
This mic is. This table is.
But you come here to play in the game, and you know the rule of the game is that you forget who you are, and the rule of the game, or the design of the game, is so that you come here and you have a number of experiences in the duality to then find your way back to being God.
God being everything.
Consciousness, God being everything. God being everything.
So when you say that God is playing a game of hide and go seek with himself, that's synonymous with me saying I'm playing a game of hide and go seek with myself.
Yeah. Well,
or is it?
No. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, God is playing a game of not being God. So he's coming here, like, and I say he, but it's coming here and it's experiencing, and it's trying to understand itself again. Do you know what I mean? It's playing the game of duality, of not being God. So that's the duality. That's the illusion that the Mayan or the Hindus and the Buddhists talk about. They talk about the duality of not being God. So to experience being God, you also have to experience not being God, and that is the duality. That's where duality starts to exist. So you come here, and your soul is birthed here. And again, I go back to the wave. You know, like the wave is while it appears to be an individual wave and an individual soul,
it's something that we can give a name to.
Exactly, but it's still the ocean, isn't it? Like, you know,
yeah.
Like a wave is not separate from the ocean. The wave is still the ocean, but it's just one manifestation of the ocean, and then it returns back into the ocean. And that's what, you know, the Hindu and the Buddhist philosophies would be.
Okay, so the wave appearing, whatever I'm sure if you look up the definition of a wave, there's certain stages, like the formation, the crest, and the crash, say, for want of a better term. So the formation is birth, and the crash is death.
Yeah.
And that's the reincarnation, say.
That's the reincarnation, yeah. And then you're you know. So your soul, while it is in an individual soul, it's only an individual soul within the structure of Maya, within the illusion.
And so you said Maya a couple of times.
Maya means illusion. That's the Buddhist and Hindu teachings.
Means illusion.
Means illusion. So Maya is the game of illusion.
Okay, and again, is that akin to the kind of the Matrix movie? That the illusion is, you know, the
illusion
life
that
we're all
this is a
plugged
reality,
into. Like.
exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay.
So this is the reality that we all believe, and that's the illusion is that we're separate from God. That's what you come here, and that's what your soul is on a journey of playing a game where it's separate from God. And then as it evolves and it begins to remember who it is and what it is, it then, you know, begins to merge back into God through meditation, through yoga, through plant medicines, through all of these things. That's your path. Your path is, and it's all cyclical. So it's all cyclical. So the soul is constantly evolving, and the same as the planets evolve, and the same as everything. So it's all a game of evolution. And the game of evolution is to evolve your soul back, to merge back into God, to the bliss of God.
Right. You have me fucking head spinning now for the next God knows how long trying to get my head around all of this.
Yeah, no,
this is what I'm going to have to listen back to.
Yeah, I know. It's certainly, you know, it is stuff that you need, you know, to sit and think about. Like, you know, if you want to try, to understand it, it's not very easy to understand, I think. But the more you begin to read about this, and the more you begin to listen to different podcasts and listen to different spiritual teachers, and the more you begin to use psychedelics, the more you begin to use all. Now, again, the more I shouldn't be saying the more you. I'm saying the more I can only speak from my experience. I'm never saying to people this is the path. That's the furthest thing that I'm saying. I'm only giving you my experience, and it's up to you then to do what you want with that. I can only tell you what's worked for me and got me to where I am with my life. I'm no way saying that that's going to work for everybody else, not in any way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said that there's a lot in this. Because I think if you're looking for a quick fix in anything, that's all you'll ever get. Is a quick fix, which is by definition not going to be very meaningful, and not going to have not going to be very meaningful. Essentially.
No, and that's again, that's why I say each practice is only a tool. It's only a tool to help you explore your consciousness. But if as I said with meditation, the patience that's needed for meditation, as Gandhi said, is the same as a person who's emptying the ocean with a teacup. Like, meditation is something you learn over many incarnations. Nobody will learn meditation in one incarnation or learn how to do it properly. It takes many incarnations to do these things. These are spiritual tools. In my opinion, now these are tools to help you evolve your soul that you use over many incarnations.
Yeah, but they obviously have. There's obviously great value in an effort to get better at it. So you're not. It's going to take several incarnations in order for you to achieve the benefits. Let's say all the benefits, but that doesn't negate the benefit that you could get from this incarnation.
Absolutely, yeah. So you'll certainly benefit in this incarnation, and it's as we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast. I would speak of this game having levels, and as you pass from one level to the next, as your soul begins to evolve and it begins to grow, you get to the next level. But you're still going to bring your practices with you. You're going to bring your meditation. You're going to bring your yoga, or you're going to stay stuck in the game of Maya, where you think that the outside pleasures are the real thing.
Yeah, and the next new car that you get, and the next job that you get, and the next,
and that's karma. So that's what karma is. Everything is cause and reality, and that's what science teaches us as well. That for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So everything you put out into the universe has to come back at you, or
at somebody else. Like from
from
a scientific point of view, it's not necessarily coming back to you.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. But I'm just using that to kind of explain it. Like, your karma, what you put out there, has to come back to you. And while that's what you're doing, your soul, as it evolves, you're working out your karma from past lives and from this life. So it's not just from this life. And the things you do in this life are going. The karma you attain in this life is going to affect you in the next life, and it's going to decide where and in what culture, in what society you're born into, and it's going to determine the lessons that you're going to need to learn in the next life. Karma is not a punishment,
but sticking to this life, and what you just said there, karma not being a punishment. So, my understanding of karma is you basically get back what you put out. So if you put out peace and love, you get back peace and love. You reap what you sow, exactly.
Yeah.
But where does that fall into the duality? Like, surely if you're putting out nothing but love, are you going to get nothing but, hate back? Or is there, that kind of way? Like, if everything has if there's a dualism to everything, and I dedicate my life to doing nothing but good in the world.
Yeah.
Does that mean, in some sense, that there's somebody else there doing nothing but bad in the world?
No, your karma is your own personal karma. Your karma is not affecting anybody else. Your life is being affected by your karma and how you're treating the world. And as I say, you something you could be doing loads of good in this world or in this lifetime, and something bad could happen to you. But that's only you dealing with a karma from a previous lifetime, like, you know.
Yeah,
Again, I'm talking
no,
about
that's the belief,
the Hindu and the Buddhist belief on this.
Yeah,
like, you know, I'm not saying this is my belief on it.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
of course,
saying that this is how they've described it and how it seems quite logical to me. If you do bad in the world, bad things happen. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, to the majority of people, and some people was, you know, when I hear people say, oh well, you know, look at them millionaires that are sitting in,
look, Mary
you know,
down the road never wronged anyone in her life, and now she's cancer.
Yeah, but you know, who's to say Mary didn't wrong somebody in a previous life?
Yeah, and again,
you know,
if I seem to be kind of pressing you for answers, I'm just trying to better understand and further on my own development.
But this is helping me to understand
course.
it, because the more I can kind of speak about it, I read these things and, you know, I try to process them, or I experience these experiences on a psychedelic, but it's only through actually speaking them out with people. And that's why I've enjoyed both these podcasts so much, because I've been able to, you know, speak to you about things, and I can probably listen back to them, and there's things probably in the first podcast that I might have listened to that I could say, well, God, maybe I'm not right about that, like, you know.
No, absolutely, and that harks back to what we said earlier about this idea that don't take anything that I say or you say as fucking gospel.
Yeah.
And I think a thing to note is, for people listening to this podcast and others, if all you're doing is listening, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Unless
you're kind of talking to people about what you're hearing. Even. Like, if you're at home, if you're a bookworm and you're doing nothing but reading, you know, fair fucking play to you. There's great wisdom in books, but if you're not talking to people about that, you're kind of missing the whole point. Really,
big time. Because all you're really doing is reading a book, and then you're not really kind of developing that idea and kind of putting it up against the test to see whether it's right or it's wrong. Like, you know. Yeah,
and I think that's good teachers. I think in schools, the few of them that are out there, they engage the class in discussion. They don't just relentlessly tell you, because like if a teacher's job was just to read from the book, you could record, you could play the audio book, you know, you had to be in class at 9 o'clock because at 9 o'clock the book would start.
The program starts.
Exactly, but that's how you kind of, that's how you actually learn.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, big time. And it, as I said, it helps you tease out these ideas in your mind, like, you know.
No, big time, because I think a lot of people are having the conversations that we've had with themselves. Yeah. But that's like playing tennis against a wall.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
And, you know, look, you will get somewhere. You know, if you want to become a better tennis player, bang a ball against the wall and you'll get better, but you're really limiting yourself.
Yeah, but the real test to your ideas then comes from sharing them with people. And, you know, I've benefited amazingly from having these conversations with, you know, so many people, like, you know, and it's not, you know, it's not a case of them just sitting there and, you know, blindly nodding their head at me. Like, you know, people like would do what you do. Like, they'd question and they'd ask me questions on it, like, you know, and that always benefits my own thought process, like, you know. And that's why I believe conversation is the only way to fully understand something. Like, you know, the more we talk these things out and the more we speak about them, and that, you know, the better you're able to understand them yourself, like, you know.
No, absolutely. And that's, again, and I hate this, the way this always seems to happen to me. It not degenerates, but it always seems to lead back to me giving out about religion. But when you look at the Catholic faith, which I was, let's say, raised in and that I'm most familiar with, the idea of you questioning a priest,
I know,
even now, like, whatever book, you know, in my parents' day, when like that would have had you kicked out of the fucking community, practically,
excommunicated, of course.
Like, there was a word for it,
exactly, it's like, mad, isn't it? Like, as if discussion is the worst thing in the world, like, you know, how dare you, like, you know.
Yeah, and again, that was, instead of the way we are now, where, you know, you've a certain amount of information, I've a certain amount of information, and between the two of us we're kind of learning and growing and developing,
teasing it out.
Exactly. Their model is, we've the fucking answers, come and listen, we'll give it to you in a convoluted way that you're not going to be able to understand, that means you need to keep coming back and question us at your fucking peril.
It kind of goes back to, you know, what I was saying about, you know, if you hear somebody saying they're a shaman, run a mile. Like, if you're hearing somebody who's telling you, you know, I've got the answer, I've got the right way, because at the end of the day, none of us have a fucking clue. Like, this is what's going on, you know, in life is you know, it's it's such a mystery that, you know, for anyone to say that they've got it nailed down and they've got it all figured it out, you know, I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly changing my thoughts. Some of the things that I've thought 6 months ago, I would then be going, well, you know what, I was completely wrong on that. But if you're somebody who was adamant 6 months ago that you were right, like, you know, you're closing yourself off to evolution, you're closing yourself off to the evolution of ideas, like, you know. So as soon as I hear somebody tell me they've got it nailed down and they know exactly what they're talking about, it always sets alarm bells ringing in my head, like, you know. I always think, you know, because, you know, it's as I would say, you know, I can only offer my experience and what's working to better my life. I am not saying that that's going to better your life in any way, like, you know. That's up to you to maybe try and see, and if it does, brilliant, if, you know. But I'm not saying my way is the way. That's the very last thing that I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, the things that you've said and the things that I've said won't be for everybody.
Like exactly,
like our the conversation that we've just had, or that we're having, should I say, this will be a certain amount of people's favourite podcast that they've ever listened to. And some people will be just kind of going, Jesus Christ, will it ever end? Like,
or they've turned it off after 10 minutes. Exactly that.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the idea that you're always evolving and that you're always growing, if you're not, like, and if you ever catch yourself thinking that you've gotten to the end of whatever it is that you're doing, like, you hear it with black belts all the time. Like, black belts will often say, and it fucking sickens my whole to hear them say it, like, they'll often say that they didn't really start until they became a black belt.
Right.
And when you're so far away from being a black belt, to hear that, it's just, it can be a bit demoralising to a degree. Like, but
it sounds, and I wouldn't know much about, you know, about that, but that sounds like bullshit. It sounds like the very, you know, first experience you had with jiu-jitsu was the very start, was it not?
Oh no, absolutely. It's the start of your journey, but you didn't really, you got all the way to black belt level before you got an all-encompassing view of what it was that you were even trying to do in the first place.
Right,
if that makes sense. Like from a shamanistic point of view, it's almost like Percy saying that, not that he considered himself a shaman, but it's like him saying that he started when he was 14, but it wasn't until he was 40 that he really kind of knew what he was doing. If that, exactly. Do you know that kind of way? Which might be a bit sickening for a 14-year-old to hear.
Of
Jesus
course.
Christ! Like.
But, I have another 30 over, you know, whatever, 20.
Yeah, but there's a really cool thing about that, that you're always learning, and that you can never be good enough. And myself and Kevin Booth talked about this idea of retirement and how it's a relatively new thing, and I hate the idea of retirement. Like, I hate the idea of getting to a certain age and then stopping to work. And if you're looking forward to retiring, that essentially means you hate your life. To a degree, doesn't it?
Well, it's the same, I think, when you hear people who constantly talk about going on holidays.
That's the same fucking
you're
thing.
Nearly like, is life that bad that you're, or do you know, and again, it's just escapism, isn't it? Like, you know, when you hear people on a Tuesday and all they're talking about is how they can't wait to get to the pub on Friday. You know, you're just like, you're missing out on all the week. Like, you know, why are you just focusing on Friday? Like, when you could, you know, do so many things that could make you happier now. Like, you know, again, you're going towards the future, aren't you? Instead of making your present moment a better present moment.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a real, you nailed it there, but the living for the weekend. Like, if you're living for the weekend, that's a fucking alarm bell. That's you know, something's fucking seriously wrong. And if you're listening to this and, you know, every week is the same, you know, you hate Monday and you can't wait for the weekend, that needs to be examined. You need to fucking ask yourself, what's going on here? Is it the job? Is it me? You know, what is it, I suppose?
I suppose it's probably okay when you're 18 and 19 and you're out having a great time with your mates and you're, you know, dying for the weekend, like, you know. But if, you know, as you get a little bit older, if you're still just dying for the weekend, like, I think, you maybe need to begin to look at things and look at ways of improving your present moment rather than always trying to look towards the future. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And you create your own reality. I keep kind of coming back to that, but I had a friend of mine over there a couple of weeks ago, and he called over for coffee one of the evenings, and he goes, you know, how you getting on, Fran, on you? Like, you know, and I was like, oh, fuck, man, don't talk to me. I just had the worst fucking day. And I listed out what had gone wrong that day. I got up that morning and this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and that happened. I was like, oh, just a big fucking disaster story the whole day. And sure enough, we ended up fucking sharing a joint together, and I retold the same day from a different angle, and it was the best day ever. This happened, and that made me think of this, and I've learned so much today. It's been amazing, like, and I find it almost worrisome to a degree, the amount of kind of clarity and relaxation I can get and do get from cannabis. You know, I wonder, do I use it as a bit of a crutch? Now, as it happens, I haven't had any because I didn't grow enough of it the last time, or didn't get another cycle going, and I've been without it for the last nearly 2 months to no downside really, like.
Right, well, there you go then. You know, I think with cannabis, I think, you know, when you smoke cannabis, it you know, it can either go one or two ways, can't it? Like, for some people, like, I know loads of people who would smoke cannabis every day, and it quietens their mind, an overactive mind, like, you know, it quietens down. And then for other people, it sends them down a rabbit hole of pure paranoia, doesn't it? Like, you know, but...
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think in the same way, some people can have a few pints and, you know, relax and everything's grand. And then some people can have a few pints and, you know, you say anything to them and it'll hit you. Do you know that kind of way? So,
but I think, I think what I'm trying to say is that I think any... Again, like, just like we were saying with the technology, if you're using a tool to better yourself, then it's a good thing. But if you're abusing a tool, then it's in control of you, isn't it? Like,
yes,
you know?
no, absolutely, yeah, no, 100%. And I would use cannabis a lot different than most people. And people are amazed by how I do use it. Like, I would have smoked a one skinner joint to myself before I ran the Dublin City Marathon. I brought another one with me for about 2/3 of the way through it. And people kind of hear that and they're like, what? Like, they just can't get their head around it. But again, they've either, they're completely out of the loop, that they don't know anything about it, which is fine. Or worse, they've been in that kind of stoner loop. And they're in they've a bad viewpoint of it, or a negative viewpoint.
Lazy mode, kind of.
And again, the movies don't particularly portray it in the best light. Like, I mean, when was the last time a stoner in a movie was depicted as a lad who went running every day and ran his own business and was, you know, did this, that and the other. Like, it's always the guy,
the negative aspect.
Yeah, the guy living in his mother's basement,
eating pizzas and playing computer games all day, and that's all he does.
Exactly. But I think the more conversations like this that people are hearing, they're widening their horizons and they're getting a better grasp on what reality is, and they're not just consuming the typical media sources, the radio and the TV, and even movies and Netflix and all the rest of it. These are real conversations that people are having about. And
again, the good science, isn't it? The good science is starting to come out now to show
absolutely,
that, you know, these are, again, as I said, these are all tools, like, you know, they're tools for, you know, exploring and expanding consciousness, like, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brother, it's what we in. We're 3.5 hours. My brain capacity doesn't have it to continue any much longer, unfortunately. You gave your email address out the last day. You hardly regret doing that? Would you give it out again?
Yeah, no problem at all,
What is it there if people are interested?
It's just my name, so it's just Ivor McQuillan @gmail.com. So it's IVORMCQUILLAN @gmail.com.
So if anybody's interested in, I don't know, maybe learning a bit more or being pointed in the right direction, or maybe they're keen to do something but they're afraid of something, you'd be willing to give people a dig out as best you can, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
I can be contacted at imoffthelead @gmail.com. I want to know if you really hated this episode and other episodes, if you really love them, what you'd like to hear more of, less of, who you'd like to get on. Maybe you would like to come on yourself. Maybe you know somebody that you've been encouraging to come on that might come on if I contacted them, or whatever else. So hit either myself or Ivor up an email. Ivor, this is the second time you've been on, and certainly not the last.
Thank you very much.
We'll have you back, and we never really got into the ceremony that we went to. We kind of touched on it, but I'd like to, because we haven't really spoke about it since.
No, not really, to be honest with you now. Just little kind of, I suppose, little messages here and there, really, like, you know. And I'm very interested to hear what your kind of take on it was, and what, you know, the experience you've had and how it's improved your life, or if it's even improved your life, I suppose.
No, it certainly has, and absolutely has.
Yeah, and has it changed your view on, you know, as you said before I came out here, you kind of like, oh, he's gone and done ayahuasca, and you had a perception of psychedelics. But has your perception on psychedelics changed in any way, or you know?
It's definitely changed in the last year or two, say, just because of the same as yourself. Just I've been listening to different podcasts and reading different pieces and that, and reading about how the science hasn't been done on it over the decades since it was kind of classed as a Schedule 1 and whatever else. Has my view of it changed since then? Do you know something? And this might sound kind of fucking new agey and convoluted. I'm still processing it.
Yeah,
that's kind of probably typical, is it?
Absolutely. You know, these things take 6 months. If you're not spending the time processing it, you've missed the point. You're not really, you know, you're missing the point completely. Like, you know, it takes a while to integrate it into your life. You know, as you said, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot happening in a ceremony. Like, you know, that definitely takes its time. It's very, again, as we say, it's hard to put these things into language, isn't it? Like, it's hard to articulate them properly or whatever. So, you know, you're using the mind to try and articulate it, aren't you, really? Like, you know, so it does take time. But again, as I said, the things that I've found that have helped me are, you know, reading different books and, you know, different people's experiences and all of them kind of things, like, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm actually keen to go back over some of the things that I've watched, listened to and read.
Yeah.
That I would have watched, listened to and read before the experience.
Yeah.
To kind of, I don't know, not to look over what I've read and listened to, having had the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm by no means finished processing it. And I'm glad to hear you say that that's kind of the whole point of it. Because part of me was kind of almost worried in a sense that I was missing something because I hadn't had a revelation of sorts.
No, definitely not. And you know, when we done it, remember, it was a mild dose we done. Like, you know, it wasn't a very heavy dose of psilocybin. It was a good dose, like, but it wasn't. You know, it was
the heroic
really,
dose that you hear people mention.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I've said this to you. The next time I do it, I think I would go with the same dose.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be keen to go to up it.
Yeah.
And I think I could get more out of the same dose by being more open to it.
Yeah.
Because I think I went into it wary of what I was getting myself into, and there was there's a certain amount of fear there about, because it's a daunting enough experience, and I think it should be viewed as a daunting experience.
If your first psychedelic experience is not daunting, you clearly haven't done your research. That's the thing, like, you know, that you know, the fact that you have gone down there with respect and all of them kind of things, if you're not going down there with them kind of things, then you haven't done your research. You do not know what you're getting involved in, like, you know. Yeah,
and to give people listening an idea, so when I was becoming under the influence of the psilocybin, I was like, okay, right, okay, here, you know, kind of here comes, you know, fucking. Keep a hold of your sanity, Fran. Keep a hold of your sanity. Don't let this thing fucking take you away too far. And then, you know, the rest of the night continued. But the next time, I'll take the same dose, but I'll be a lot more relaxed, and I'll be like, okay, I'm prepared for this. I'm ready for this. I know not exactly what's going to happen, but I have a better understanding of.
This, you know, I guess the saying is that get out of your own way. So
I was very much in the way. Very much so.
You like. You know, within that experience, you very much, like, I always say that the work is done internally. So it's you go in and you have the experience inside, but you tended to want to. You nearly wanted to podcast it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to talk
through it, and you wanted to understand it, and you wanted to. That should be all done afterwards. The experience should be have the experience and then process afterwards, or you know. Have the experience for the first 2 or 3 hours where it's all internal, and then as the medicine wears off, then begin to process it through and talk it through, like we did, like we sat, you know, for ages talking and chatting, didn't we? Like, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
But you know, the other way to have that experience is to go inside first, to go in, see the visuals, to see the kind of lessons that it's trying to give you, and then afterwards do the process, and maybe begin the processing as it wears off, and then as you're doing now, as you said, you're spending the rest of your time processing it, like, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we'll end it on that. It's been an absolute pleasure. the email address for both of us are there. I'll leave them in the kind of the notes on the Facebook page and on Stitcher and wherever else. Ivor, again, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to the next time we sit down.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.